So yes, Wesley, that is correct. Today we are talking about Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. That's what the
Yep.
title says at
I,
least.
I, I didn't know that you wanted more input on my end of things. Plus, I'm over here reading the you got 18. I didn't even read them all. You got 18 trivia questions to ask me in Trailcast trivia, which will be coming up in the next segment after we talk a little bit about Return of the Jedi movie. I pride myself in being a pretty knowledgeable Star Wars fan, but these are like nitty gritty things. Like
Yes, and
I don't have time to know these things.
yes, so I'm gonna say this again. We'll get to Trailcast Trivia, but we are Star Wars nerds, so generally in Trailcast Trivia, the Star Wars stuff is gonna go a lot more in depth. Just warning y'all.
Mm.
Anyway, but before we get to Trailcast Trivia, do you have something else to
What
say?
I wanted to say real quick, I was gonna say was that I was doing the normal research that I do, and when it comes to movies, and usually I watch like little known facts and stuff like that about the certain movies we're watching. These are not little known facts. These are like you have to be reading the source material. You have to like know every single detail about a scene. Not like in Return of the Jedi, instead of Ewoks, the original idea was for it to be Wookiees. That one's one I heard like 50 times today because everyone said that. But that's not like well, I don't think it's on here. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It might be. You never
I didn't
know.
read them all.
Might be. You never know.
Okay, that's true.
Anyway,
Can't spoil that. Stay tuned for that. All right, David, how do you want to start this? Talking about Return of the Jedi.
well, we should probably start from the beginning because Act One is very,
It's a horrible place to start.
but Act One of this movie is very different from the rest of the movie because Act One is this like complex heist, almost heist-esque thing to save Han Solo, but it's completely Luke's plan doesn't make the most sense.
Here's the thing, and this is one thing that I heard the most when it came to watching this. I don't necessarily know, like, none of the original trilogy are really like non-kid friendly, but I heard the most when it came to talking about Return of the Jedi. They were like, yeah, this is the one that really solidified Star Wars as a kid franchise, like more for kids. And so it was usually the one that most people watched first. Now, for me personally, I watched A New Hope first.
Mm-hmm.
I know that for a fact. I watched A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and then Return of the Jedi in that order. I think I might have came around to I know obviously Revenge of the Sith. I watched last of them all, but I think even Attack of the Clones and Phantom Menace, I think I watched a little later than the original trilogy. But that being said, I don't like. There's a lot of aspects, especially that one there with his plan, that don't necessarily work if you're trying to overanalyze it. Because yes, his plan makes no sense. Also, the Emperor's plan later on, sure, he's like foreseen it all to come true, but at the same time, like you have to kind of set aside the analytical side of your mind when watching this movie because it's not that kind of movie. You have to just kind of put aside the disbelief and just be like, oh yeah, this is just how it's gonna work.
Mm-hmm. And I think so. I think most people would agree that Return of the Jedi is the weakest of the original trilogy, and it's still a great.
Except unless it's your favorite.
That's your favorite, and I'm just saying it's still a great movie. I still love
Mm-hmm.
this movie. I enjoyed watching it, but yeah, I do fall into that camp of having the opinion that it is the weakest of the original trilogy. I'm not saying it's a bad movie.
It's kind
just
of like
not as good as the other two.
it's kind of like saying who's the weakest, Arnold Schwarzenegger, The Rock, or Shaquille O'Neal.
Exactly.
Like they're all huge, they're all big. Sure, one's gonna be the weakest, but does that mean that if your average Joe came over there that he could take him in a fight? No, he'd get pulverized. Same with this movie. This is an amazing trilogy. There are people out there who are Star Wars purists who are just original trilogy through and through. Anything after 1988 or 83, sorry, is just like there's no more Star Wars after that because they only accept the original trilogy. But you know, even outside of that, I love a lot of the prequels. I love the Clone Wars. I love like Rogue One and other some of the new stuff, Mandalorian and all. But this is the best showing for Star Wars. Was the start. It kind of was hit or miss after that, but like the start was hit out of the park. And there's a reason that I mean, what it started in 1977. How many years? We're 50 plus years away from that, or from that now. So, right? Are we 50 years?
50 years would put us.
That
would put us at 2027. So we're almost there. 4 more years. So we're
almost 50.
4 to 6 years.
So we're almost 50 years. Almost 50 years into this, and there's like, David, we weren't around in 77. I think for anyone watching this, that's kind of obvious, hopefully. But like, it's one of those things where like we're diehard Star Wars fans, and it's not because we were around in 1977, So it's lived on, but these are great movies, and for anyone whose favorite movie is Return of the Jedi, we're not trying to discount that. It's an amazing movie. Personally, we just feel like the other two are better.
Yeah, but yeah, like I said, I still and looking at the 6 movies as a whole, like it just this is the perfect ending for those 6 movies, which we'll get into later. Is why I have such a problem with one of the reasons I have a problem with the sequel trilogy, and specifically Rise of Skywalker. We'll get into that later. But, like I said, I think it's for the story that George Lucas was trying to tell across the 6 movies, this is the perfect ending.
But I do want to. So I had this thought brought to me, and I saw it, I thought about it, and then like made sense. Like it made sense in my mind. So we follow Luke Skywalker in this trilogy, obviously, but we learn things at Luke Skywalker's pace, right? So in episode 6, Leia finds out that Vader's her father and that Luke is her brother. But Luke finds out all that when the audience finds out in episode 5.
Well, he finds out.
So we learn things.
He finds out Leia's a sister at the beginning of this movie, but so.
Well, I'm saying more so like stuff like this. So we learned that, and then we learned that at the beginning of the movie, yada yada yada. We learn things as Luke learns them. So we're basically in Luke's shoes, and they were talking. Whatever I was listening to was talking about how like Luke as a character doesn't keep anything from us. Throughout his time as there's nothing that's Luke knows as a character that the audience doesn't know. And so I kind of feel like that's very similar to the way that they did it. Kind of did it in the prequel trilogy as well, where we're following the character of Anakin and kind of following the story through his eyes, more or less, not completely, but more or less through his eyes.
Well, I mean,
so with that.
Yeah, and I see where you're going. Like, I mean, there are some things, of course, we do know because of the original trilogy. But yeah, I understand what you're saying, where you're going with that.
Well, my point with that though is obviously in episode 2 and 3 we can say that our main characters are like Obi-Wan and Anakin, and that Anakin is kind of the character that we're more or less kind of following because this is the Skywalker trilogy. With that in mind, obviously there's a huge chunk. My bad for bumping the camera. There's a huge chunk of the movie that, for the Phantom Menace, that follows. Like Anakin's not a part of. I think an hour of the movie he's not in. So I feel like this would be extremely hard. But I wonder if after that point, if there's any way, because we talked about this before, there's not really a main character of the Phantom Menace. I wonder if with that in mind, if you can even kind of look at a Phantom Menace and be like, oh yeah, I see how we're watching it with Anakin. I don't think you can. Just in my remembering of it, we watched it a couple months ago, so it's more or less fresh in my mind. You know, because you have like an hour of the movie, but I wonder if there's any semblance of a way you can be like, hey, I can watch it and be like, oh yeah, I'm kind of seeing it through maybe this character's eyes,
Mm-hmm.
or if it just constantly switches up, like more than likely it does.
Yeah, I think it does switch.
Kind of like I'm remembering it.
I think it does. I think if you can assign it to any character, it's Qui-Gon.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Yeah.
Qui-Gon is pretty much the main character of, like, if you had to say there is a main character of the Phantom Menace, it's Qui-Gon.
I mean, you did get Liam Neeson to do it, so if you're gonna pay that much money for him, you kind of got to make him the main character. But
Yeah.
it was just something that I was thinking about. I was like, I wonder if I were to watch it back, if I could even figure out a way to put it where Anakin is the main character of even a portion of it. But I mean, he is kind of the Tatooine side of it, but not really.
I would say in the Phantom Menace, if you had to, like, say someone who's the main character is Qui-Gon, but Anakin is a pivotal part of the plot.
Yeah. That's a very long and convoluted question to ask, and it's not even on topic with
Also,
the Return of the Jedi. So I guess we should probably get back to that.
Before we do it, you made me think of something too. Think about this too. You said we watched it a couple months ago. That was 6 months ago. This is the sixth Star Wars movie. That was 6 months ago. We watched that and talked about it.
Has been a minute.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Coming back to Return of the Jedi, we were talking about the escape from Jabba's palace and rescuing Han Solo. So, like I said, this was kind of like I said, this is the first act of the movie, and it's kind of weird because it doesn't really set up the rest of. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. It's more just resolving issues from Empire Strikes Back.
Mm-hmm. I don't think, like, much in the same way that Empire starts off. Like, okay, in Empire, my bad. I don't know if you heard my burp over the mic or not. I wasn't paying attention to the screen to see if my screen lit up. Anyways, in Empire though, that first part of the scene, the battle on Hoth, it starts to set up some things, but if you kind of parallel the battle on Hoth to this, kind of ends similarly, which kind of helps bridge the gap from this on Tatooine to the rest of the movie, where they split off. Luke goes to Dagobah, and the Han, Leia, and Chewie with the Falcon, they go to the Rebel base, which is where they were trying to go in the Empire. Then after that, it kind of brings things back together and starts telling the story that Return of the Jedi is supposed to be telling. But yeah, I will agree with that. Like, it is kind of it kind of just happens. But I feel like they did it well enough that you don't really, as far as storytelling goes, and as far as like being into the story or involved in the story, like you're still interested. Even after it kind of, because like you think about it, there you could probably break down the first act of this movie into its 3 separate acts.
Yeah,
I mean at the end of it all, they defeat the villain, and they soar off, and that's the end of it. So it's a whole thing that, yeah, like you said, doesn't set up anything. Also, it takes it's not quite, but it's almost an hour of the movie before they leave Tatooine. It's about 40-ish minutes or so before they get off of Tatooine.
So that's when
it's a 2-hour movie, but
this movie is almost broken up into 2 parts because of this. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Like I said, for what it does flow very well. But it's just, like I said, it's interesting that it's broken up like that. It is almost 2 separate stories.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, they have to
Um,
pick up from where to pick up the pieces from Empire. Because Han is captured by Jabba the Hutt. Um, and then even like after the whole Tatooine thing, Luke still has to go back and complete his training. So there's that too.
mhm.
So like they're just picking up the pieces from Empire and kind of resolving those before they move on to finish the story of the trilogy.
Yeah. Um, so we've talked about the fact that Luke's plan was extremely convoluted and
Mm-hmm.
kind of just all over the place. And I don't know how he came up with this plan. Okay. I don't think he can say he came up with it in a very similar way that the Emperor came up with his plan because um now I don't know what research you've done and I don't necessarily know this for a fact, but from what I've heard, Empire to Return of the Jedi is only a year, whereas from A New Hope to Empire New Hope to Empire was 3 years. So this is a shorter period of time. So that being said, it's still he hasn't gone back to do any training. So for all intents and purposes, he's not he might be more powerful, but he's not that much more powerful than he was in the past movie. So I don't think that he can just like peer into the force and be like, all right, let's foresee the future and come up with a plan based off of that. So I don't think he can get that kind of an idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this plan is very, very all over the place. It kind of makes you wonder, like, did Luke just come in after maybe everyone else had their own idea of how to do this? Like, what if Leia succeeded? Like, what if Leia succeeded? Let's talk about that, all right? Like, did Leia and Chewie have their own plan? Did Lando have his own plan? Did Luke just come in and like
Pick up the
make
pieces
it
from their
work?
plans.
Yeah. Or did he come in with his own plan and it just worked? You know? Like, or was the plan just for them to all get there? Like, what really was
Yeah,
the
yeah,
plan
because
here? Because
like
like Leia freed him from the carbonite. If Abba the Hutt wasn't as aware as he is, she might have been able to get him out of there. Like, obviously they were waiting for her and all. They figured that out. But like, what if she escaped with him? Well, then
mm-hmm.
you still have to deal with the fact that Lando's in there for some reason. You have to get the droids out that Luke just gifted to Jabba, and so like now you have another set of people to rescue. So it's like, what was the plan here? Was it
So
all supposed to work out like this? I don't know if it was.
if okay, so what Luke really should have done was send the droids in to get like R2 has all sorts of sensors and stuff. He could have like basically scanned the entire like throne room, would have found the Rancor pit, the trap, and then after they get that information, then send Luke and Chewie in to force Jabba to let Han go. And if not, you have a Jedi and a Wookiee. I mean,
And Luke, like, okay, obviously, like there was a plan in place, okay, because they talked about it, and R2 had Luke's lightsaber this whole time.
mm-hmm.
All right, so like Luke planned on getting captured, but like why? Also, what then would be the point of sending in Leia? Like she, okay, for all intents, like yes, at the end of it all, Leia kills Jabba. But I don't think that specifically was part of the plan. They probably thought maybe she'd get captured as well and be with them. But like the fact that Jabba being Jabba, decided that he liked Leia, then like who would plan for that? Like there's so many variables to this that like obviously it's a movie. It's not but and I loved every minute of it nonetheless. But it's like really like this plan would work in no scenario whatsoever. You could simulate it 100 times. It never work out like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. It
Yeah. But hey, we got that great part of it.
Now, one thing I do want to talk
I
about
don't really
here.
know how much.
One thing I do want to talk about
Yes.
here too is so obviously Luke's got a new lightsaber. The last
Mhm.
one, he lost the last one in Cloud City in Empire. So obviously there's the reason of that why it's green. There's the two commonly accepted reasons, which one is to contrast the sky in those first couple scenes, and two is to make it clear that it is a new lightsaber.
Mhm.
But so here's a theory I heard that I actually really like about this. So where we know from a deleted scene that he built it in Ben's hut. He got the parts for it in Ben's hut. Where did he get the kyber crystal?
Oh yeah, isn't it theorized that it's possibly Qui-Gon Jinn's lightsaber?
Yes, yeah, or his crystal.
I've heard that before.
I really
Yeah,
like that
yeah,
theory.
Crystal.
I really like that theory because Obi
Yeah.
Wan I think in I think in the novelization for the Phantom Menace, it mentions that he kept Qui Gon's lightsaber. So presumably he still had it
Um.
at this point.
So then let's talk about this this thought then. So Luke used his father's old lightsaber. There's a possibility that Luke used the crystal from Qui-Gon Jinn's lightsaber. What crystal, if Luke went to Ilum, would he find and would he be used? What color lightsaber would he use?
I think it probably would be green. Just going off the legends, because I know it's not canon anymore. Going off the legends thing of um what each crystal represents, I feel like he would have a green lightsaber.
Yeah.
Now, now one interesting thing, and I did not put this on the trivia. I almost did. I did not put this on the trivia, but in canon, Luke actually had a third lightsaber. In one of the comics,
I've heard of this. I don't
in
remember
one
it.
of the comics, it took place between Empire and Return of the Jedi, but he had gone to an old Jedi temple and had found a lightsaber that belonged to a temple guard. So for a while, he wielded a yellow lightsaber.
Wasn't that when he fought what's his name? The uh Grand Inquisitor, like his Force Ghost or
Yeah,
whatever.
or because I think in the comic it was supposed to have been the Grand Inquisitor's Jedi lightsaber that Luke found.
Yeah.
So yeah, he
Mm-hmm.
dueled with the Grand Inquisitor. But again, that's the comics. Almost no one knows the comics. So
That's like deep Star Wars
yeah,
nerds.
like I said, I almost put that in the trivia,
Mm-hmm.
but I decided against it.
When you first said it, I was thinking yellow, but I forgot about that. I do like remember bits and pieces of it. Obviously, I've never read it, but I've watched enough
mm,
Star Wars stuff,
mm,
to know stuff like that. But it's not always in the forefront of my mind.
because that is one of the canon comics. Because there's a bunch of comics that aren't canon anymore, and then there's a bunch of comics that Disney's released that are canon. So that's also another thing that's hard to keep straight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Anyway.
is what it is. I've gotten a couple Star Wars comics, and I don't necessarily care, like what whether they're canon or not. I just look at them and I'm like, hey, if this is a cool story, I'm gonna get it because hey, one way or another, it's Star Wars content. But
Yeah.
you know, so
Yeah.
anyways,
So
I don't know how much more there is to talk about specifically about this scene, but I do know that there's one important factor into all this, and that is Boba Fett. I don't know how he's supposed to be the. I mean, obviously at this point in time, he's not Boba Fett that we know. Like he was not that character at this point in time. You know, he becomes it, and he's supposed to be in the Star Wars timeline, but he's not. Like that was not how this character is written. But you see, like, okay, so he goes to fight Luke, right? He stands within like arm's length of him with his gun, gets that chopped off, and then he like right before he dies, he sits there and he holds his arm out and he aims real quick before he shoots his rocket at Luke before he gets hit in the backpack. It's like all these different things that like someone who's a prolific killer, like one of the best bounty hunter in the galaxy at this point in time, and a Jedi killer, like I think he'd do better. Obviously, like I said, this is not the same Boba Fett character that we know later on, but like he goes out like obviously he goes out pretty wimpy, but
Mm-hmm.
like it is like real bad watching it back. I was like I didn't realize just how little like how inadequate in a fight he looks.
Also, let's talk about the fact here too that because of a mistake in the choreography, force kicks are a thing because of this sequence. Because Luke misses a kick, yet the guy still flies back. So, and the actual canon explanation for that now is that Luke used a force kick.
There was something, forget what it was, but in that scene, I was specifically watching something like for something that Boba Fett was doing, and it's in that same scene where he does the force kick, and so I stopped it like after Boba Fett fell into the Sarlacc pit, and so I rewound it, and as I was rewinding, I stopped it right there because like I saw it, and I was like, "Yep, there's the gap," because I've seen it before, but I've
Mm-hmm.
never actually like thought about it when I'm watching it, and so
Yeah,
I had it there on my TV on the disc, and I was like, "Yep, there's the force kick."
but I just that's so funny to me that's like an actual thing now because of the messed up choreography.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. So that I don't know. I was gonna say because one thing obviously we will and can talk about some of the different things that George Lucas updated in Return of the Jedi. One of which is the beak for the Sarlacc pit. Um. There's obviously a bunch of other things that we'll probably get into at another point. But how do you feel about that? So, I mean, it's a very minor detail, but like, do you have an opinion as to like, do you care that it's a has a beak now as opposed to it just being a pit, or is there any like do you care at all, or is it just like okay, whatever, it is what it is. George Lucas can do what he wants.
I mean, it is what it is. I don't really have an opinion on it either way.
Hmm. I will say it does look a little bit more cartoonish with the beak. I think it looked cooler as just a pit in the sand with like some teeth. But you know, George Lucas, he's gonna go in there, and that's the thing is like he said that before. Like when making the prequels, he really had full range to do what he wanted because the technology got to the point where he could do what he wanted. Whereas in the original trilogy, he didn't have as much access to doing everything that he wanted to do with like some of the VFX and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So like obviously with that in mind, like a director like that, it's kind of like expected that he probably would go back and do certain things like that, you know, even just touching up things here and there. Some things are good that he's done, and then some things are like, why would you do that? And then some things may or may not be noticed. It's just kind of one of those things that, you know, I do wish that some of the older, I have all the tapes from the original stuff. I don't know when they were released. I think they were released old enough to not have too many of his uh, stuff in it, but it's like, they're not as common to come by like the original cuts. Um,
Oh, it's very hard to find the theatrical releases of them. of the movies now.
Yeah, I need to get a tape player so I can go back and watch those. And I do want to see, like, obviously it's still not the original cut. Like, um, I think there was even like the update where Jabba is in it. It's still on those tapes. Because only I think when they went to home releases, I think that they put in the scene with Jabba of some kind. I think.
Mm.
Because I think it's only with the theatrical release when they originally released it that Jabba was cut out of that movie. Because he only made his first appearance in this one. But if you watch through the movies, you'll see him in A New Hope because he's been put in.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, we've already been talking about this almost for over half an hour, and we haven't even gotten to the main part of the movie yet. So let's go ahead and move on to that because we've got a lot planned for this episode.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and move on.
Yeah.
Also, this one's gonna be the one because I was looking. We have not had as much as we talk about Star Wars, as much as we love Star Wars, we have not had a Star Wars episode break 2 hours yet. This one is going to.
Sarah was talking to me about it earlier. I said, "Yeah, I'll try and get on earlier so we can get it done." And she said, "The likelihood of you getting done earlier, even if you start earlier, is very low. Just because you're talking about Star Wars, you have Return of the Jedi and you have Ahsoka later. Like you're going to be talking for like
And trivia.
5 hours."
Yeah.
And trivia. So yeah, let's go ahead and dive into the rest of the main meat of the story. They've rescued Han. That's already out of the way. Let's get to the rest of it.
All right. So the actual introduction to the main part of the film is very short because it's literally just the briefing room.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, you do have the one scene at the very beginning before, the rescue mission from the Imperial point of view, but they just they get back to the fleet and then they just here the Empire's got another Death Star, we need to go blow it up. They got the shield generator on Endor. General Solo, you're gonna be heading up the mission here. So like I said, they kind of rush into that, but I mean they already
they already were. Yeah.
They already spent.
I was gonna say they're already an hour into the movie,
Yeah,
so
they already spent 40 minutes doing the rescue mission. And of course we also do get the short scene on Dagobah, where Luke, of course, gets confirmation that Darth Vader is his father, and Yoda also tells him about Leia being his sister.
and we get the ever iconic, maybe memeable. I don't know if it was a meme or not. I don't really care. I'll be a old man. I'll be a boomer right now. But memeable from a certain point of view line.
Mm-hmm.
Which I love how so everyone's reaction is you're kidding, right? You're gonna try and justify that. And Luke does the same thing though. Like it's not like in a movie where someone says a line and every other character is okay with it and the audience is just that's stupid. No, Luke's from a certain point of view. He's so really are trying to get by on you didn't lie to me here. I found that funny. I might have been the only one. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, David.
But yeah, I mean, in all reality, it's just covering up for the continuity error in A New Hope, but
Mm-hmm.
I also
still funny.
Side note, I know we need to keep talking about Return of the Jedi because but I also love how in A New Hope, how Alec Guinness could not care less to the point where he even refers to Darth Vader as just Darth, like it's his first name.
Yeah. We'll just lay that down to continuity as well.
And then before he even says his name was Darth Vader, even though Darth is his title, but whatever. Anyway,
Well, you have to think about it like this. You have to think about it like this. Obi-Wan lived at a time when there was no Sith Lords present, like out in the open. They thought they were extinct. So the Emperor was the first one that he came across. I mean, obviously you had Dooku, but then like you had the Emperor, and then Vader. So I mean, he may have just thought that Anakin changed his name to Darth Vader. Like he may just not understand the Darth title.
Except he fought Darth Maul and Darth
All right,
Tyrannus.
so after this, they go to Endor, where the shield generator is. David, shut up. Nobody needs your 2 cents. I might be broke, but I don't need it. Anyways.
Talking about Endor real quick.
Oh, go
I
ahead.
might be jumping ahead, but we can jump back if we need to. But why are the Ewoks such good fighters? Like, how are they? How are little like animate teddy bears so effective?
Well, you gotta think about this. David. If a little tiny teddy bear came running up to you, what would you think?
I would not like. I wouldn't think it would pose a threat, but the Ewoks obviously did.
And then it takes your knees out, and you're on the ground. You're on its level now, and it's pummeling in your face with a rock.
Exactly.
Your thin little stormtrooper outfit is not going to protect you. Now, imagine if you had a whole swarm of them charging you. You're not going to fare too well. So,
also,
I mean, they do use some things to their advantage. Like a little bit later on, like when they're in the battle, they have like 2 logs come in and they slam into the ATSTs, and like it blows it up. I mean, that'd be pretty effective. Like they use their environment to their advantage. They know it a little bit better. Now, obviously, slingshots aren't going to do too much besides annoy some of them. But then, if you annoy a trooper long enough, he might end up getting shot by one of the other guys with a gun.
Also, most people might not think about this or even want to think about this, but okay, so when Han, Leia, Chewie, and Luke and all them first come meet the Ewoks. Well, I guess not when Leia does, but when the rest of them meet the Ewoks, they get caught in a net trap, and then the Ewoks are trying to cook them. So what do you think?
It's called dinner.
So what do you think happened to all of those stormtroopers that the Ewoks killed?
David, it's called dinner.
Exactly.
And in this case, it's a feast. It's not cannibalism because it's not the same species.
But that's like that feast at the end of
David,
the movie. The Ewoks are probably chowing down on some stormtroopers. All I'm saying.
Hey, if they're already dead, don't waste it. All right. Anyways, I do want to mention this. So, and I've heard that, and I feel like you've probably heard this before too. I've heard this before, but it's an interesting. It's kind of like a duh. You probably should have done this. So the Emperor allowed the Rebel Force to steal the shuttle, get the codes, and allowed them to get to the surface of Endor, all for an elaborate trap, right? Which backfires because the unexpected happens. And I mean, here's the thing. Okay, sure, he may not have expected for the Ewoks, because that's why they were able to blow up no matter what happened with Luke on the Death Star, the Ewoks were the reason that they were able to blow up the shield generator. And if the shield generator was down, Lando was going to blow up the Death Star. So Luke didn't have an effect in that realm. But let's think about this. Why did he actually lead them to the actual place? Like, why didn't he have like a red herring over here where it's like this is not the real place, but they're going to attack it anyways, and then it's going to be a trap, kind of a deal, you know? Instead of allow them to get really, really close to basically foiling his grand plan, you know?
Yeah, that's a fair point. Yeah.
Like maybe don't put them like allow them to get that all and go to Endor. Maybe just maybe just let like if they don't get the if they don't get to Endor, if they don't get the ship, you just finish building the Death Star, and then you can blow up whoever you want. I mean, how if you have a bigger star space station, if you have a bigger space station and it doesn't have the same weakness the last one had,
And the super weapon can recharge in 6 minutes instead of 2 hours.
maybe just let them just don't let them do any of that. Maybe cool it with the elaborate plan and just build the thing and then dominate the
Also,
galaxy forever because you're not gonna die.
also in the Star Wars universe, isn't it like ships have shields? So why couldn't they have put the shield generator on the Death Star?
Luke might have been involved in planning that. He's not the greatest at planning.
No, 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 no.
Apparently, neither.
It's it's
But
genetic. It was Darth Vader's idea.
The thing is like, so obviously this is the first time we actually see the Emperor. Now we see him at the Empire Strikes Back in some holograms, in a meeting with Vader. But this is the first time we get to actually meet the character of the Emperor.
Mm.
Now, when we meet him in the prequels, he is so much more conniving and scheming and like he's such a smart villain. Like he has a whole plan and he's pulling all these strings, and it's not like he has Leia and Chewie go in and then he has Lando already there and then he sends in the droids and then he goes in. It's like an actually good plan, you know, that actually will work. And like that's how we see him in the prequels. But then you come to this and you're like, sure, you might have seen the future or a possibility, but you could also just not, and you probably would have fared. You would
Okay.
have fared a lot better.
So I also don't know what the whole like. Think about this too. The Emperor really like lost all of his like ability to like make an actual functional plan after he became the Emperor. Because okay, think about this. So like in Bad Batch, we learned that the Empire is trying to come up with all this like cloning technology. And what do? They blow up the most advanced cloning facility in the galaxy and kill most of the people responsible for it. They blow up Topoka City on Camino. And again, the Death Star. What does the Empire do once they're about halfway done building the Death Star? They kill all the Geonosians who are the ones who designed it in the first place. So, so they have to rely on Imperial scientists to design it. One of which who puts a major flaw in the Death Star.
Yeah, the fact of the matter is, George Lucas came up with a plan first, and then he filled in the gaps, and the gaps didn't really make that much sense when he filled them in.
Mm-hmm.
Chief Palpatine is a mastermind when it comes to planning. But because he didn't end his life a mastermind, he kind of just has to come out of nowhere and make stupid plans. Which is kind of like, man, I really wish that character came out differently. Like, don't get me wrong. He looks really cool in this. Like, he's a really cool villain in this. but he's kind of stupid too. Like he's kind of an easy, like he kind of sets himself up for failure, and
Mm.
it's even more so in a way than you mostly see with villains. But uh, this was obviously you know this, but this was the first time being the role being played by Ian McDiarmid, who is the Emperor in the prequels, which is kind of cool. Like you know,
Mm-hmm.
there's a 20-ish year gap, I think, a little bit less, no, a little bit more, no, less than 20 years, because '03 would be 20 years after this. It's like a
Mm-hmm.
less than 20-year gap. I was gonna do the math, but then my head hurt.
We don't need more math.
So subtract the one, add a two,
No,
take
no
away
math.
the 4.
We've already figured out that's a bad idea. We don't need a flashback to
But
we don't need a flashback to Back to the Future.
but apparently he almost actually he originally didn't have the role. It was down to him and one of the actor, I don't remember who it was. If you remember the name, go ahead and spit it out now. But the other actor was older, but then he came down with a sickness that I don't know if he died from it, but it was like a really serious illness that he had. He couldn't shoot anymore, and so they brought in Ian McDiarmid to play the role of the Emperor, and obviously you know the rest is history. But you know, what was I gonna say? I don't know. He does an amazing job as the Emperor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, obviously the biggest thing is his voice, which originally he was going to be dubbed over, but then George Lucas heard the voice that he was doing, and he was like, "Oh no, that's perfect. Let's do that." And you know, to this day, he is the Emperor, like
Mm-hmm.
through and through. He's that character,
And
and
of
he
course,
does an amazing job in it.
and of course, he also did an amazing job in the prequels too. Like
Oh yeah,
he's probably the well, he's probably the most consistent like good actor with good lines in the prequels.
you think? Oh, here's the thing. Um, You know how we were talking about, I think when we were talking about Phantom Menace, how we were talking about Liam Neeson being one of those actors that you can give him a really bad line and it still kind of comes across
Mm.
as like not bad or not cheesy. Same with like Samuel L. Jackson, you know, stuff like that. He's very much one of those actors too because he has some lines that are like, if anyone else delivered this, it would not come across this way.
Do it.
Like he delivers some bad lines. I mean, yeah. I mean that could be bad. That could be good. I don't know. But something
It's
like
a meme. That's
specifically,
all.
like
You know.
yeah. I mean, yeah. But anything can become a meme nowadays,
True.
David. So you can become a meme, but nobody knows you.
Hello
So
there.
you wouldn't be funny enough. That's not a bad line. It's just a meme. Well, is it a meme or is it just something people say?
No, it's a
I
meme.
mean, it is something people say. Okay,
But it's a meme.
it's a meme.
Okay, that's also the thing. I don't think like the term meme has a consistent definition. Because like there are people who like
True.
only refer to memes as like the pictures, but then there are people who refer to any kind of like inside joke on the internet as a meme. So I don't really think there's really much of a consistent definition.
No, I am perfectly okay with not being in the loop on that.
Mm-hmm.
Um. So another thing that I want to talk about with this, and I don't know how much more you want to, other things you want to talk about, but is the transformation of Vader in this
Mm-hmm.
movie. Does it kind of seem a little out of nowhere? Because it kind of seems a little out of nowhere in my mind. Also, in the fight, if nothing else, in the fight between Vader and Luke, it also kind of seems out of nowhere. I do want to get your opinion on this. So, obviously, lightsaber forms and how Star Wars was going to play out had not been as fleshed out in Return of the Jedi. So there is that bit of a stipulation on it. But watching Luke fight Vader, he obviously fights him with a lot more aggression, a lot more, seemingly a lot more skill than he did in the Empire. Luke would get absolutely destroyed. Absolutely destroyed by obviously Anakin Skywalker in the prequels, Obi-Wan Kenobi definitely. I think Obi-Wan Kenobi would still just at this point in time. At this point in time, prime Obi-Wan, prime Anakin, basically almost anyone from the prequels in that era would pretty well destroy Luke at this point in time. Just the way he looks, specifically the way he looks. I know Luke's supposed to be more powerful, and obviously he gets more powerful as time goes on. But like, I feel like Vader should have done a lot. But obviously he's dealing with the conflict in his mind and all. But I don't know if you remember. I don't know. I don't remember when you. I don't remember. I don't know when you watched Return of the Jedi before we did this. I watched it last night, and so Luke takes a swing. They're on this little bridge. Luke takes a swing at Vader, and he's over here on like Luke's right. Takes a swing at Vader, and then Vader goes to dodge it, and he goes to the other side of the bridge. But when he does that, he basically just falls to the other side of the bridge. He catches himself with one of his arms, and then he holds his lightsaber arm up, and that's when Luke whacks it off. He just falls though. Like there's nothing really that Luke does ahead of time to injure him too much at that point in time. He just basically beats him down and then wins the fight. Obviously, Vader had been in the suit for over 20 years at this point. But I don't know. I don't really think that really necessarily means that he has gotten any substantial, significantly weaker to this point in time. So you think that he still should be as peak Vader as he as he could be. I mean, he's gotten more accustomed to the suit while he's also been in the suit for a longer period of time. I mean, he's 50 years. He's about 50 years old now, or 40, 50 years old now, and he's been in the suit for 20 years. But I just don't understand necessarily how Luke beats him in this fight. And I also feel like I also don't feel like what.
Good.
I was say it's because of the fact that he has he's starting to go to the good side, so he doesn't want to kill his son. But I also feel like that transformation is kind of out of nowhere. I want to know what your thoughts are on this. Well, I don't have a problem with it. Like I said, I love the movie. I just feel like some of it's out of nowhere, Well,
all I was gonna say is because David Prowse was actually in the fight instead of a stunt actor, but
Did he film in that part of it? Because I heard that he was only in the beginning of this movie.
Because he had a stunt,
I heard
he had a stunt actor in the in Empire and in A New Hope.
There was a stunt actor who did this scene. He may not have done this whole scene, but I know that they said they had problems with it because the stunt actor was significantly shorter. Okay. But they had to do it like. But I don't know necessarily all the ins and outs of it. I haven't done the research, so if you want to look it up. But that being said, David Prowse gets a lot of flack, or not really a lot of flack, but he has there's a lot of butting of heads when it comes to David Prowse in Star Wars. Like, there are a lot of problems on set with him. Maybe not always on his end, but with him playing Vader. But that being said, why did they use him? Obviously, he was tall, but if they use a stunt guy half the time, and they use James Earl Jones as the voice, why not just put a stunt man in the suit?
And they didn't even want to use his face for Vader, so
yeah, just put a stunt man in the suit. like 4 people played Vader in this movie, like.
Yeah.
I have to remember all the names. I don't remember the guy. I don't know the stuntman's name, but I saw it was a question for later. So, but yeah, I just don't know. Like, I want to know what your opinion is. Is like, do you think Vader's transformation is a little bit out of nowhere, and like, do you think?
Okay, so.
That's the biggest thing.
The thing with this movie is, like, they knew where they wanted to end up, and I feel like they didn't have enough time to like thoroughly explain how they got there. I feel like they like if this movie had another hour to it, they could have had more more like transformation of Vader, but you know.
But they wanted to go the Lord of the Rings route. That's like a lot that's the trilogy, the Return, and but they also could have gone. I mean, obviously the movies hadn't come out at this point, but they could have gone the 3 hour route.
I don't think movies like were that movies weren't that long then. They are now, but not then.
No, it's
because for the time this was a long movie.
Hey, George Lucas with Star Wars was breaking ground as it was, so maybe he should have just broke ground with how long it was.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like I said, here's the thing: there are story aspects to this movie that like you can look at and scratch your head and be like, that doesn't make any sense. But it doesn't take away from the fact that like I love this movie. This is a great movie. It's a fun time. It's a fun watch, and like for anyone who's sensing continuity errors in my speak, because like we've been talking about Ahsoka for the past couple weeks here, and I really harp on a lot of the story aspect of it. It's a little different. I watched this when I was 5 for the first time, so yeah, I love it.
Mm.
It's a little bit different.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I love the movie. It's a great movie.
Yeah, now talking about this duel, which we've talked. I think in every Star Wars movie, every Star Wars retrospective we've done so far, we've talked about the duel in the movie. Now, I know nothing tops for at least visually impressive duels. Nothing tops the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
But what are your thoughts on just like the visuals of this duel?
I mean, for the time, they were pretty good. Like, I mean, I didn't think that the Empire duel was bad. I thought that one looked good. I probably, would I take that one over this one? There's not that much duel to the Empire one. It's a lot of, like, they fight a little bit at the beginning, and then it's a lot of stuff happens, and then they fight a little at the end. I feel like it's kind of similar to how this one goes. Like, there's a point where they fight for a second or two, and then Luke's like, I'm not going to fight you. And Luke hides for a second. Vader taunts him. They fight some more, and then that's when he just starts hacking. Obviously, I think Luke looks better in this. Not great when it comes to lightsaber duels.
One thing you also have to understand, too, is everyone's heard this story before, but, during the original or during the filming of the original trilogy, George Lucas told the actors to pretend like they were using real swords, and then he realized for the prequels that lightsabers wouldn't have any weight, so they can just sling them around like maniacs. Which is where why they look the visually looks. I mean, obviously you also have the effects of the time, but that was one of the main reasons why they look so visually different. It's also one thing you can't kind of understand why they're more drawn out, why they're more like just more the action's more spaced out, is because they're more mimicking more realistic sword duels. But
well, that is one thing. It's like you could even tell with the stance that Luke takes. He takes a dueling stance, like kind of one foot in front of the other, kind of spread apart with the sword out in front of him with two hands. Like that's his dueling stance before he starts going. Whereas like, Obi-Wan's is the two fingers with the lightsaber drawn back, and then Anakin's is like you see him a lot of times with the lightsaber over his head, like those are not maybe traditional. Like obviously at this point in time, us talking about all this, there are so many different forms of lightsaber combat, like so many different forms of lightsaber duelists. That was not around at this point in time. Like you said, the lightsabers were thought of differently. But I don't think they did a bad job with it. Like, there's some flips in this that Luke does. I think they tried more in this than they did in Empire, and they did more in Empire than they did in New Hope, obviously. Um, but yeah, like you said, nothing's going to compare to the prequels. It's still good though.
Mm-hmm. Now, and also like one reason, well, and I've mentioned this before on the podcast. I'm not gonna keep rehashing this because I've probably mentioned this like 5 times on the podcast already. But Dave Filoni summing up the well, I've heard Dave Filoni sum it up, and I've heard Sam Witwer also sum up the original 6 movies. Both of them do a really good job. Both of them both point to this pinnacle at this duel, and this is probably one of the most influential duels in the original 6 movies. You have Duel of the Fates in the Phantom Menace, you have the Mustafar duel, and then you have this duel. Those are probably the 3 most influential in the live action movies.
The way the movies play out,
Yeah.
because think about this. Let's say Luke gets killed in this fight, or let's say he kills Vader and Luke decides to join the Emperor. If everything else plays out the same, there's still a very high likelihood that they all die in this Death Star. So then what does the galaxy look like at that point? You're basically just down Luke for the rebels.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying it doesn't mean it's influential. I'm just saying for the way that the movies play out, like this duel impacts very little for the overarching scheme, but obviously it has a lot to do with it's the redemption of Anakin Skywalker, which is a big part of
Well,
the 6 movies.
it's obviously a big part of this movie because Return of the Jedi. Anakin is the Jedi who returned. Like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the movie's named Return
So,
of the Jedi.
I want to ask you about this, and it's been a while since this could be what it is. This could be the fact that there's an original release that's different than what we have now. I heard this maybe once or twice. This one was apparently the first time the name Anakin Skywalker was mentioned. They mentioned that this boy is the offspring of Anakin Skywalker in Empire Strikes Back. Was that an original thing, or was that dubbed over later on when they brought in Ian McKellen? No.
Ian McDiarmid.
Ian McDiarmid.
I
play for the role.
I don't actually know because the hologram in Empire was not originally Ian McDiarmid. I don't know if that was changed or if what the Emperor said in the hologram message was changed in the special edition when they brought in Ian McDiarmid to do it over or not. I don't know.
It makes more sense for him to mention it at that point in time because, like, us as the audience, we know, like, there's no mystery to who Luke's father is. It's more mystery that Vader is Luke's father. So, it still fits at that point in time if he were to say this is the offspring of Anakin Skywalker, because it could just be, oh yeah, some Jedi named Anakin Skywalker. We know who that is. Powerful, yada yada yada. And then later on, we find out that Vader is Anakin. Yeah, I was kind of curious about that. I didn't. It was like one or maybe 1 or 2 videos mentioned it, and it was kind of like real quick. Like it was like this movie was the first one to mention Anakin Skywalker. Next one, like it was very quick. So I haven't looked into it any. I just didn't know if you had any more info on that or you knew more. But something to look into then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I said, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if the dialogue was changed. I mean, obviously, Ian McDiarmid did the dialogue, but I don't know if the script was changed or if it was just the visual and Ian McDiarmid being there. I don't know what exactly was changed in the special edition because they've also been like 20 special editions, and each one has like 5 to like 20 changes. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard for us not having actually seen the original cut of it in theaters,
and also
to know.
And also like George Lucas, like, for like 20 years he was constantly just like tweaking minor things here and there in the movies, and he could have even had Ian McDiarmid record the line, do that and then come back and change the dialogue. I don't know. There's so I like I said, I don't know every single specific change from the
Hmm.
special editions. So
Yeah, I bet even George Lucas doesn't remember all that he changed to it.
exactly.
Uh, but so what else you guys say about this movie?
Well, I mean, we could talk about characters and character development because this kind of does wrap it up. But I feel like we talked a lot about that. We got ahead of ourselves in both A New Hope and Empire. Um, and honestly, really, like it's just more of this. It would just be more of the same
Hmm.
if we were to talk
I mean,
about character
obviously in this
development.
one, I think some of the biggest stuff is that um like one thing I did find a little bit interesting, kind of cool, more or less, is the bashfulness of Han Solo when they go back to the Rebel base, and they're talking about like he finds out that Lando is going to be leading the air attack, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't have you do it." And he's like, "Well, maybe I just turned it down or whatever." And then we find out later that he's actually leading the ground assault. Like right before that, Leia's like, "I wonder who they roped into doing that." And he's like, "General Solo, have you gotten your?" He's kind of like, "I don't want to publicize the fact that I'm actually trying to help the rebellion."
Mm,
Like it's kind of a thing, but like um his character, besides a little bit of that, like actually being a little bit more willing to help the rebellion, for the most part, still the same. Um, he's kind of more come around to the cause. Leia, I feel like pretty well is just the same character that she's been in the past couple movies, and Luke just has to deal with his internal struggle of the dark side, which I don't really feel like they did a extremely like they didn't focus on that too hard. Like there is an aspect of it, but I don't feel like that's such a focal point of the movie that you're really like, oh, he could turn to the dark side. Like if at
mm,
the end of this movie he actually turned to the dark side, it wouldn't really fit, you know?
mm.
Well, it might fit the movie because it's kind of all over the place in certain areas, but it wouldn't fit the
But
storyline.
but I feel like the biggest character development was, of course, the like redemption of Vader.
Mm.
Um,
Which again is kind of not focused on too much, but it
no,
still
but
is
it's
it still is
there,
the
but
biggest aspect of it.
yeah, it's there, but it's yeah. Um, and of course, like we've said, many times, and we're talking about like the character development of Han, which he has the most of the original trilogy, but we are also talking about Solo next month, so I feel like
Yeah.
that's when we can talk a lot more about the character development of Han and how it doesn't exactly fit with Solo, but that's a story for another time. Anyway,
The Solo story for another time.
exactly.
I do want to ask your opinion on this. How do you feel about this one specific change that George Lucas did, putting Hayden Christensen in over Sebastian Shaw, I believe is his name, who originally played the unmasked version of Vader or Anakin.
I don't know. Like, this is one thing that I kind of like. I know there are Star Wars fans who have like very divided opinions on this.
Hmm.
I I don't really like. I don't mind that they brought Hayden back. I think it's kind of cool. But at the same time, I do understand the argument of some Star Wars fans saying like Luke wouldn't know who that is.
Yeah. Also, it doesn't really make much sense either. Like, there's old Ben, there's old Yoda, but you just redubbed him as the young version of. Because like it does make sense. Like no the argument that says Anakin in this form was Vader. Yes, true. But Anakin in his redeemed form was still Vader too. Like you can't say because he wasn't Vader all of Return of the Jedi or Revenge of the Sith. He wasn't all Anakin Return of the Jedi. So it's like you can't really make that argument.
Mm,
But it makes more sense that if he was redeemed at the end of his life, he wouldn't have reverted back to a younger like But in all honesty, and I know that there's the explanations for it. I feel also like the fact that Anakin's there, period, because Force Ghosts weren't explained until after this, is a big like screw you to most any other Jedi who didn't end up doing it, or to Yoda and Obi-Wan who spent years of their life, or Qui-Gon who spent years of their life training for this, and Anakin just is, I got it.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Like, apparently, it's not that hard of a practice to figure out if Obi-Wan was able to teach Anakin in the last couple seconds of his life. Obviously, you can slow down and stuff like that. You can say that, but it's like still, it's kind of a. I'm not saying I have a problem with it. It's just kind of funny, I feel like, and yeah, I don't know. Like I love Hayden Christensen too. It's one of those things where it's like,
And you can,
I don't know if it's necessary. It's the biggest thing.
yeah, and also like with that, you can't even make the argument about like maybe Obi-Wan taught Anakin before Anakin turned to the dark side, but Obi-Wan didn't even know about all that until after that.
Yeah. So,
it was when Obi-Wan and Yoda went into exile that they started learning this. So
I mean, the biggest thing that you can come is say that is because he had such a strong connection to the Force, which is more fair. But like that shouldn't be the whole driving factor for it all. But I mean, it doesn't really matter that much. Like I said, I love Hayden Christensen, and I love him as Anakin Skywalker. I do feel like it was kind of a pointless change. They didn't go and put Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan in the Force Ghost scenes. That wouldn't make any sense, and it's kind of like, does it really make sense to do it here? But it is what it is. I was just curious to see if you had if you had strong opinions about it or not, which I feel like neither one of us really do.
yeah, like I said, I agree with people saying like it does, conceptually it doesn't really make the most sense. I mean, okay, on one hand, I guess if you're a Force ghost, you could probably choose the way you want to appear. If so, why did Anakin want to appear that way? Also, again, Luke would have no idea who this is. I mean, you can also maybe give the argument of like the visual aspect is not everything there is to the Force Ghost. Like maybe from just feeling the presence, you would know that's Anakin. But still, at the same time, why?
Yeah. It doesn't. It really just doesn't make down to it. Doesn't really make much sense. But George Lucas is going to George Lucas it. So,
but like I said, it doesn't make much sense. But at the same time, I'm not gonna sit here and argue with someone who likes the change. It's just not that big of a deal.
And it's not being changed now. So even if you don't like it, what you gonna do about it?
Yeah. Exactly. Well, how long have we been talking? Hour and 15 minutes.
That's it. Wow.
Yeah. Well, you got anything else?
Nope. I think I'm ready for Trailcast Trivia if you are.
Trailcast Trivia. All right. Again, we don't have a transition yet, so we'll workshop something like that in the future.
Trailcast Trivia. You're welcome.
Okay, so Trailcast Trivia. All right, so I've got 18 questions here for Wesley. Now, some of them have been posted on Instagram and on our YouTube community page, so if you've been keeping up with those, you might have already seen some of these questions. But those were mostly the easy ones. So if you thought those were too easy, well, I've got some hard ones. Alright, so without further ado, let's do further and jump right in.
Let's do this.
Alright, so
You get a lot of these wrong.
Alright, so, well, first question was actually one that was posted on Instagram and YouTube, and 100% of people answered it correctly. So, if you get this question wrong, you are an idiot. All right.
I answered it correctly on Instagram too, or not Instagram, on YouTube. So if I do get it wrong, I am an idiot.
All right.
It's a
So,
wampa.
question number one. What is the name of the monstrous creature kept in the pit below Jabba the Hutt's palace, which Luke Skywalker battles during his rescue mission? Is it A. Rancor, B. Wampa, C. Tauntaun, or D. Sarlacc? I'm gonna give you about 20 seconds
Um,
here to answer it because I know this is a hard question. So
so I do want to mention this fact though, because you made this comment. Now, obviously, you could just be saying it strictly to me because I'm supposed to be like pretty knowledgeable when it comes to Star Wars. I have spent most of my life, uh, aware life, watching and doing stuff Star Wars related. But you just said that if I got this wrong, I was an idiot. So does that mean that like you're basically saying anyone who doesn't know this specific question's answer is an idiot, or is it just specifically just me?
just you.
Just me. Okay. I was
Well,
gonna say
okay,
I don't
okay,
want to
okay.
alienate our non-Star Wars
Also,
audience.
let me rephrase this too. So, for people who are Star Wars fans, this is common knowledge. Like, I can't.
It's definitely a wampa.
Is that your final answer?
No, it's a rancor.
Yeah, the Rancor is correct. But yeah, like I said, like for people who aren't Star Wars fans, you might not know that. But if you've seen, like, C-3PO says it in the movie, so if you've seen Return of the Jedi more than a couple of times, you're gonna know what it's called.
Hmm. Ready for the next one?
Yes. All right. So now this one should be another easy one. So number two, name the four actors responsible for the portrayal of Darth Vader slash Anakin Skywalker in The Return of the Jedi. Is it A. David Prowse, Sebastian Stan, James Earl Jones, and Hayden Christensen? B. David Prowse, Sebastian Shaw, James Earl Jones, and Hayden Christensen. C. Peter Mayhew, Sebastian Stan, James Earl Jones, and Hayden Christensen. Or D. Peter Mayhew, Anthony Daniels, Morgan Freeman, and Matt Lanter.
Okay, so I'm assuming that this is obviously you saying this after the uh after the edit because Hayden Christensen is
Yes.
the only is with the options with it. Um Sebastian Shaw was, unless I'm getting the Sebastian wrong, is which would probably put my answer at B. But what I'm gonna get at here is so you're not including the guy who plays him as a stunt actor. You're just including.
In this question, I'm not including the stunt actor. That is correct.
Okay. So with that, unless my last name is wrong, which I'm putting as my answer. I'm pretty sure Sebastian Shaw is the gonna be Stan, isn't it? B is my final answer.
That is correct. David Prowse, Sebastian
Okay.
Shaw, James Earl Jones, and Hayden Christensen are the four actors responsible for the portrayal of Anakin Skywalker slash
Peter
Darth Vader.
Mayhew. Who is that?
So Peter May. All right. So
Oh, the name.
Sebastian Stan is Bucky Barnes in the MCU. I put that in
Hmm.
there because of the
Figured, yeah.
similar name. Peter
Hmm.
Mayhew played Chewbacca,
Okay.
and of course Anthony Daniels is C-3PO, and for no points whatsoever, but a bonus question: do you know who Matt Lanter is?
I know the name. I can't think of who that is though, or what he does. Or
He played Anakin in the Clone Wars, or I should say, voiced.
oh, yes. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Morgan Freeman, just because I thought of a black guy with a big powerful voice, and Morgan Freeman, James Earl Jones,
Um. Who did do the stunt for him for Vader?
um, the stunt actor for David Prowse had two stunt actors during the the original trilogy. I think this was Bob Anderson.
Okay. Who's the other guy? Do you know?
Uh, I think it was Scott. No, not Scott Lawrence.
Isn't Scott Lawrence one of the writers? I
No.
feel like I know that name with
But
Lawrence Kasdan.
I forget the name of the other stunt actor off the top of my head. But yeah,
Okay, that's
there were
fine.
two stunt actors. So, yeah. Anyway,
All right.
um, yeah. On to question 3. So, what is the name of the Ewok tribe's chief from Return of the Jedi? Is it A. Wicket, B. Chirpa, C. Nisa, or D. Tebow?
I'm gonna go ahead and say I don't know this one.
Yeah, it's a curveball.
Um, so my educated guess is Chirpa.
Is that your final
As
answer?
I'm right now. I'm split between Chirpa and Nisa, and I know that the one I pick's gonna be wrong, and the other one's probably gonna be right, unless it's. I know it's not Wicket. I know who Wicket is, but I'm gonna go with B Chirpa
That is
as an
correct.
educated guess.
That is correct.
Cool.
Chief Chirpa.
I was trying to think back to my Lego encyclopedia, Star Wars encyclopedia that I had with all the Lego characters. I think he's in there.
No, actually, the only two Ewoks in he might be in the Skywalker saga. I'm not sure, but the only in the Lego Star Wars 2 and the complete saga, the only two Ewoks are just Ewok and Wicket.
Oh, I thought I remembered seeing the chief, but maybe not. It's been a long time since
Mm.
I've seen that. Actually, I do not have the book
And
over here. I had the book over here earlier.
and so Wicket, Chirpa, Nisa, and Tebow are actually all names of Ewoks in Return of the Jedi,
None of which are mentioned.
except for Wicket. Well, actually, is Wicket even named? I don't in the movie. I don't even know.
Wicket's not. Wicket, I don't think is named because Ewok isn't even named in the movie.
It's true. Yeah.
I think that's all just from source material after it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I got that one off of a lucky guess. This one I don't even have a lucky guess.
All right.
The
So
next
So
question.
yeah. Number 4. What is the name of the droid getting tortured in Jabba's palace? Is it A. EV9D9, B. C525, C. IG88, or D. ID8? Or 8D8. Sorry.
But this is the trash can drawer that gets flips upside down and gets his feet burned.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I know IG88. I know what that droid is. That's not this one. That's one of the assassin droids. So I have the other ones. Now I'm gonna go with either A or B, just because I feel like those look more like droid serial numbers. um, and I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it's AEV9D9 because I just don't know.
That is correct. You are 4 for 4, and you've guessed on 2 of them. So, okay, so C525, I made up.
Okay.
That's not a real droid name. And 8D8 is the droid who was torturing EV99.
See, 8D8 seemed like it could be made up. C525. The reason I didn't do that one was because I was like, I feel like C with C3PO. Like I'm not entirely sure how much the droids stay in line with like their numbering, but I felt like that wouldn't be a trash can droid
That
allegation.
would if
So I
that
was
if that was a real droid, it would probably be. I would assume it'd be a protocol droid.
yeah, because they have the silver protocol droid from Phantom Menace. That's a C. What's that one?
I forget what the actual designation is, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I went with, but Wow, I'm on a roll here with lucky guesses.
All right. Now, this next question was one that was also on Instagram and YouTube, and 63% of people got this one right.
I'm gonna be the one that got it wrong.
Yeah. So, question
I
number
changed it, but I got it wrong
so
originally.
question number 5. When Return of the Jedi when was Return of the Jedi originally released in theaters? Is it A, May 20th, 1983, B, May 4th, 1983, C, May 25th, 1983, or D, June 1st, 1983?
All right, for anyone who does not know the date right off the bat and has to take a minute to think about it, what I'm about to say will not spoil anything. So when I pulled this up on YouTube to see what we had and take the quizzes on it, I narrowed it down to May 20th and May 25th. So all the years are the same, but the dates are different. So I narrowed it down to those two dates. So I had a 50-50 shot in my mind of getting it right. I chose the wrong answer nonetheless, but I do know what the right answer is now. And for those of you who are still waiting,
I will say I was not nice in this question because I intentionally did answers that were very close together, and that, like if I'd done different years, it would have been obvious. But
yeah,
I did the same year and all within the span of a month. So, like that,
Now, what I heard, so this movie came out exactly 6 years after A New Hope. Sounds right. What I heard, which I guess that means in 1977. My answer is the correct answer, but it's May 25th, 1983 is when it came out. And so I'd assume is that when New Hope came out?
I'm not sure. But, fun fact,
well, I'm going to look it up as you tell me that I'm right.
Yes, you are correct. It is May 25th, 1983. But
A New Hope came out on May 25th, 1977.
But one thing that is interesting to this question is, so in 1983, May 4th, May 25th, and June 1st were all Wednesdays. So this movie came out on a Wednesday. May 20th was the Friday before, which I thought might get people if they looked back on the calendar.
If you're going to look back on a calendar, just look up the answer.
Yeah, but yeah, really. Now, you probably know this one. Question 6. So, in Return of the Jedi, now, okay, again, this is another deep cut. I think Wesley knows this one, but
I answered it before we started the podcast.
Oh, you did? Okay. But anyway, so 6.
Yeah.
In Return of the Jedi, what is the name of the band that performs in Jabba's palace? Is it A, Dax Wubbadub and the Womp Rats, B, the Max Rebo Band, C, the Figrin Dan Band, or D, the Gamorrean Quartet?
So, fun fact about this band, they do survive the events, the beginning events of Return of the Jedi, but they broke up not long after. So, sad. I don't really have much more to say about all that, so if anyone else is trying to think of the answer, go ahead and pause it, because I'm about to say at least what my answer is. David may say I'm wrong, but it should be right. The Max Rebo Band is the answer that I am coming to a conclusion of.
That is correct. It is B, the Max Rebo Band. See, with the first...
What's that, 6 for 6?
Yeah, the first one, I think it's obvious, but I came up with the answer.
Wubba dub dub. You added Womp Rats, so that's a Star Wars thing. So,
but I was thinking like I just trying to think of like band names, and I was like Dax Wubbadub and the Womp Rats. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is I have to put that in.
I'm just kind of sad that your brain came up with that.
And the sad thing is, that sounds like something George Lucas would come up with too.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. That's why it sounds Star Wars-esque.
Yeah. Oh. All right. So Question 7. Again, this was another one that was posted on social media, and 92% of people got it right. So you should get it right too. This one should be
Let's see
easy.
what's that.
Alright, so question number 7.
Yeah.
In The Return of the Jedi, who is the bounty hunter that Leia impersonates to rescue Han Solo? Is it A. Dengar, B. Aurra Singh, C. Bosk, or B. Or no, B. D. I'm losing it. D. Bausch.
So I did answer this one on there, and I did get it right. Specifically because I know who the majority of these bounty hunters are, which is I wonder why that might be what most people are going off of. Because I mean, it's not.
Yes, because I did use all real bounty hunters from Star Wars, and if you know Star Wars bounty
Yeah.
hunters, you'll be able to get it right.
Mhm. So, but before I went and answered this, I did come across it. Um, but I will say I didn't know it until today. But it's what'd you say? D was Bosch,
Bausch.
Bosch.
Bausch.
That's the
That's
bounty hunter
at
shoot.
least how I'm pronouncing it.
Bosch.
Hmm.
That's my answer.
Yeah, B or D. Bausch. Yes, you are correct.
Because Dengar, correct me if I'm wrong, he's the one with the bandages. Aurora Singh is the one who has the sniper and the little ponytail, and
Mm-hmm.
then Bosk is obviously everyone knows who Bosk is. So
Yes.
the green lizard guy.
Yes. So now another one that should be relatively easy. I don't know if you're gonna get this one though, but it should be relatively easy. Just kind of more. This one's more about the movie, and not necessarily in universe. But question number
Mhm.
8: who directed Star Wars Episode 6: Return of the Jedi? Was it A. George Lucas, B. Steven Spielberg, C. Richard Marquand, or D. Irvin Kershner?
So I had interesting facts about this, but I don't want to say anything that would give the answer away. So I guess again, for anyone who's listening and trying to answer this right, go ahead and pause it because I'm going to say some things that will spoil the answer. So George Lucas did not direct this one. He wrote it, but he wanted to do what he did with Empire Strikes Back. He wanted to have someone else direct it. So his first choice for it was Steven Spielberg, but because of problems with the Directors Guild, where's my the computer just told me that it needed to be plugged in. So 1 second. All right. So due to problems with the Directors Guild, which George Lucas he had left and had problems with because of New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. Because at this point in time, you're supposed to put like all your credits, or you're supposed to put credits at the beginning of the movie. George Lucas said, "I'm not going to do that." So for New Hope, they let slide. For Empire Strikes Back, they fined him. And I'm pretty sure. Never mind. But I don't remember who the director. If that's Ivan Kershner, if that's who the director of Empire, I don't remember if that's who it is. I know the name, but anyways, they almost fined the director for that too, but George took the brunt of it. So Spielberg couldn't direct Return of the Jedi due to those problems, and the only reason that I really know who the director of Return is because I hear his name is like, or last name is like, Mark Wan or something like that, and it's like Don Juan. So C is my answer.
Yes, it is C. Richard Marquand, or I think it's Mark One, but yeah. I don't think
I don't really care how it's pronounced, but from what I
don't
heard, it
think
was
you
like
pronounce
that.
the
And
D,
it's like
but
Juan.
yeah, I don't know if
Yeah,
you pronounce the D or not, but yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
fun name to say.
And
But didn't Irvin Kershner direct Empire?
yes, Irvin Kershner directed Empire.
Hmm.
So
He almost got fined for the problems that George was having with the Directors Guild, but he went ahead and took the brunt of it. And then he left the guild because he was just fed up with it all. So
yeah,
that's why Steven Spielberg could not direct this movie.
yeah. So again, score update. You are 8 for 8.
It's gonna go downhill eventually.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta get at least 50%.
Well, there are 18 questions, so if you get one more right, you are at 50%.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if I'm gonna get the next one because
Alright,
I'm kind of blanking on this.
so question number 9. In Return of the Jedi, who is the X-Wing pilot who flies alongside the Millennium Falcon to destroy the second Death Star? Is it A. Wes Jansen, B. Biggs Darklighter, C. Wedge Antilles, or D. Jack Porkins?
I know well, I can't just jump right into that because we might have someone who's still listening at this point in time. We might have someone who cares enough to want to listen and guess these on their own. So I have. All right, I'm gonna start spoiling things, or at least my thought process. So if you don't want to have any input on this, go ahead and pause this. So, Legend Tilly's. I'm thinking that's Captain Antilles. I'm pretty sure that's his first name because I feel like there might be more than one Antilles, but I'm kind of ruling him out because I'm blanking on it. I'm pretty sure that Wedge Antilles is he's gonna be the right answer. I'm Captain Antilles. That's what I'm going with. Porkins. He's from the movie. He's that's not who it is. See, Biggs though, that one seems like it rings more of a bell, but Darklighter doesn't ring a bell. And then Wes Jansen's really just throwing me off. So I'm really kind of in a little bit of a not really sure what's going on here.
They are
I have one.
real X-Wing pilots from the original trilogy.
Yeah. Well, then I'm gonna go with Biggs because I know Biggs is a character. I think at this point in time, I just don't think I knew that that was his last name. So I'm gonna go with my final answer being B. Biggs Darklighter.
That is incorrect. It is
Mm.
C. Wedge Antilles.
So what's Captain Antilles' name in A
I
New Hope?
I don't know if or I don't know his first name. I'm sure he has one. But I was about to say I don't know if he has one. I'm sure he has one. But I don't know what his first name is. But Wedge
Okay.
Antilles is a different character.
I, yeah, I couldn't remember that.
And
Oh well.
in fact, Wedge Antilles, I believe, is one of the only pilots to appear in all 3 movies because he was in the mission to destroy the second
Mm.
Death Star. He was piloting one of the snow speeders on Hoth, and he was, of course, in this mission to blow up the second Death Star.
Yeah, I know the face, like but that doesn't help me in this instance. Like that doesn't help me with the name. So,
Mm.
uh, oh well. That's what I said. I knew that if I discounted one character, I mean, obviously I knew it wasn't Porkins, but
Well, I think
outside of that, I was like, if I discount a character,
I could be misremembering, but I think Porkins actually dies in A New Hope.
he does.
Yeah. So yeah. Question number 10. In Return of the Jedi, there is a significant character who appears in both the original theatrical release and the 1997 special edition. But a notable change was made in the 1997 version. Who is the character and what was the change made? Is it A. Jabba the Hutt? He was given a digital facial animation makeover to make his movements more expressive. Is it B. Boba Fett? His voice was redubbed by a different actor to match his voice in the prequel trilogy. Is it C. Admiral Akbar? His costume design was updated to make it more detailed and screen accurate. Or D. Lando Calrissian? His clothing color was altered from blue to green in the 1997 version.
This is another one of those things where, like we were talking about earlier, I can't remember all the stuff that happens in every single one of these special releases. Um, Positive if you want to think about this on your own. But obviously, it wouldn't be Boba Fett because they hadn't filmed the prequels yet. So that one's obviously out for it being, that they redubbed it to match the prequels. Because they didn't film. Well, they might have. They filmed it early, but
I think production had
Tom
started.
Morrison didn't start playing.
I think production had started on the Phantom Menace at this point.
It wouldn't have started on Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
Um, Oh, um, it's very possible that it could be Jabba the Hutt, but like, because I know all the details that they had to go through with all the stuff with his character. The Lando Calrissian thing just seems like it's so small that George could have done it, you know. Same with Admiral Abar. Like, they update his let's see, his costume was updated to make him more detailed. I don't know. Just off of an educated guess, I'm gonna have to go with A. It was Jabba the Hutt to make him a little bit more animated. It's not that he looks like he's more animated in it, and I'm going to go ahead and say that it's probably going to be one of the smaller things from C or D. But just because I don't really have much reasoning for this, I'm just gonna go with A for Jabba the Hutt.
That is correct.
It didn't do a good job with it, I'll tell you that.
Okay, it was 90s CGI. What do you expect? But
It's fair.
yes, it was facial animations for Jabba the Hutt. Um, yeah, all of these are like that. That was a very like hard question because like a lot of them are like so like such minor details no one would notice.
Well, I mean, even that one is such a well. That's kind of what you said, but even that one's like that's such a minor detail that no one's
Mm.
really gonna notice it. You know, like, but that's just what George Lucas did.
Mm.
So
All right, so you are now 9-1.
at least
So you have
I'll get
gotten your
50%.
you have gotten your 50%. But now we're moving on to more general Star Wars in general. We're moving away from
Okay.
Return of the Jedi. So for the next 8 questions, they're just gonna be Star Wars in general. Now it's still gonna be mostly focused on original trilogy. I don't think I have anything other than original trilogy here. But all right, so
I know we talked about this next one.
yeah, so
I'll see if I remember it.
question 11: In A New Hope, what is the name of the Imperial spy responsible for notifying the Empire of the droid's presence in Mos Eisley? Is it A. Thalos, B. Garandon, C. Jethrin, or D. Trunco?
I know we talked about this, but none of those names are ringing a bell. Um, I know you also mentioned the fact that this was like the last credited role, or last thing John Wayne did. Maybe not credited, but last thing John Wayne
Well,
did, or whatever.
it wasn't credited, and technically he didn't do it because it was taken from a. It was a clip of a line he had delivered in one of his movies that was run through a bunch of filters to get that
Mm.
sound effect. But it's still,
Unless it was John Wayne.
technically the last thing the last role he had in a movie. Like
I don't know.
if you go to Wikipedia, he's credited for this character, and that's his last credited role on Wikipedia.
Mm. Um, go ahead and pause it if you don't know this and you want to figure it out. Um, I, my answer is going to be C because I'm just shooting a
So
shot.
your answer is C. Jethrin.
It looks the most correct. It doesn't sound correct.
That is incorrect.
hmm
It is B. Garandon.
See, I thought that one might have been, but I was like, it just didn't fit right in my mind. So,
You didn't fall for fake George Lucas name. D. Trunco.
oh, I almost did. I was like, that sounds like it could be one, but I was like, maybe it sounds a little too much like it could be
Okay,
one.
but that's like I was just trying to think of in A New Hope, like the greedy bounty hunter is Greedo, the overweight X-wing pilot is Porkins. Like it sounds like something George Lucas would come up with. The guy with the trunk is Trunco.
My camera just got real bright over here. Tune it down a little bit. Come dial it in a little bit over here. Okay, we're good. We're good.
All right, so you are 9-2. All right, so
So hitting that 50%.
all right, so How many actors have played Anakin Skywalker slash Darth Vader in all of Star Wars canon? And I'm including physical actors, voice actors, and stunt actors. And note
All
again,
right.
this is all Star Wars canon. Not all Star Wars
Yeah.
in general, all Star Wars canon.
So we'll go through the ones that we know, and we'll come to the close because I obviously don't know how
Oh,
all the
well, here,
stunt
let me
actors.
read off our answers here. So we got A is 5, B is 7, C is 13, or D 16.
And this is just before I actually start counting out the characters. I'm guessing it's probably going to be around 13 to 16 when you include all that together. But so far, ones that are like main landline canon. So we have Jake Lloyd is playing Little Annie. We have Hayden Christensen who plays um, Anakin in the prequel trilogy. We have Matt Lanter who voices him in the Clone Wars. We have David Prowse who plays in the suit. We have James Earl Jones who plays the voice of him as Vader. Um, I'm going to go ahead and assume that there's at least one stunt actor for Hayden Christensen. You said that there was two for David Prowse. I know at least one of them, but let's say there's two, so that puts us at 7. Um, Now, are you also including some of the newer stuff because there would probably be there may or may not be a different stunt actor for some of the stuff that happened in like Obi-Wan or whatever, or possibly like who played them in Rogue One, so that could put us up a little bit higher. But without adding any of that into it, that puts us at about 7.
Mm.
So I got all the main people. The stunt actors is where it's going to get me. Now, also trying to think of what isn't canon. Um, I'm just going to go off of the movies, Clone Wars, and I guess whatever shows. But that's probably going to get me. So I'm probably just going to go with B7 and hope that the stunt actors don't get me with that.
That is incorrect.
Mm-hmm.
The answer is D 16.
All right, list them off. Let's see
All right,
where
so
am I
I've got
missing it?
okay, so David Prowse, who's obviously in the suit for uh Vader. Bob Anderson was his stunt double. Sebastian Shaw, who was Vader
I did
Unmasked.
miss him.
James Earl Jones, who is obviously the voice, so that's 4. Hayden Christensen, Jake Lloyd, so that's 5 and 6. Now, one thing I mentioned Matt Lanter earlier. Matt Lanter was only the voice of Anakin in seasons 4, 5, 6, and 7 of the Clone Wars. There was another actor named Matt Lucas who voiced Anakin in the first 3 seasons. I
I
honestly
don't think I knew that
I
that
did
was
not
different.
notice a change at all. Like watching the show, I cannot think of a change in the voice, but there was
Mm-hmm.
a change in the voice actor. So there were 2 voice actors for the Clone Wars. So that brings us up to 7, 8, and then we've got Scott Lawrence, who did the voice of Vader in Fallen Order. Then we've got uh, Spencer Wilding, who I think was, I could be wrong. Now, we're getting into the stunt actors, so I did not write. I
Mm-hmm.
should have written down who there were stunt actors for. So I could be saying these wrong. So take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt. But I think that was David Prowse's other stunt double. Then we've got Daniel Naprouse and Ben Cook, who were Hayden Christensen's stunt doubles in Attack of the Clones. Then Joss Gower, who was Hayden's stunt double in Revenge of the Sith. Then we've got Daniel Stevens, who was in the suit in Rogue One. And then we've got Dmitris Bistrevsky, Ukrainian name, sorry if I pronounced that wrong, and Tom O'Connell, who were stunt doubles in Kenobi. So Yeah, there's a lot of people who, and again, if we
When you
include,
add that many up, yeah.
and again, if we include like everything that's not canon, it balloons up the number.
Yeah.
Like
I figured it would be one of the bigger numbers, but since I couldn't put that many names, I didn't want to fudge that many stunt actors either.
mm,
So I was like, yeah, I'll just stick with this. But
mm,
that wasn't something I was ever gonna get.
yeah. So that puts you at 9 and 3, right?
Yeah, I think so. I'm about to be 9-4 because I don't, unless I get a really good educated guess, I don't know this
Okay,
one.
so yeah, 13. What is Luke, or what lightsaber form does Luke Skywalker use? Again, another deep cut. Is it A?
Actually, I might know.
Is it
I have an educated
okay?
guess.
Well, is it A, Form 3 Sorsu, B, Form 4 Ataru, C, Form 5 Diemso, or wait, I say C or D for that one. Anyway, or D, Form 7 Vapad.
Like I said, I don't specifically know this or remember this. I do know disclaimers because I want to anyone who's playing along, I want them to be able to play along. Cut away, pause, whatever, if you don't want to hear the answers because I'm about to spoil some things. So, a pod is Ace Windu's style or form that he made a variant of Form 7. So I know that what that is. That's not it. Sorsu is the defensive one. You can't correct or incorrect me on this because that would give the answers away. But I believe that's the defensive one. For whatever reason, I'm feeling like Form 3 doesn't sound right, but Sorsu does. So Sorsu is the one that Obi-Wan practices, but that's not what Luke does. So it comes down to the Ataru and Dimso, but I seem to remember that Luke practices Form 5, and I believe that is what it is. Also, I think it's a more aggressive fighting style. I know that he fights very similar to Anakin, and I think that's what Anakin does. But anyways, we can go ahead and just say it's C, Form 5 Dimso, because that's my educated guess. And you can tell me I'm wrong, but that's fine.
You were actually correct with everything you just said. So yes, Form 3 Sorsu is Obi-Wan's, Vapad is Mace Windu's modified Form 7, and DMSO is the form is Form 5, the lightsaber form that
Who
Luke Skywalker
practice
uses.
who practices Form 4 Taro? What's that?
Um,
What's that fighting style?
I don't actually know. I can't actually think of anyone in canon because I think I could be wrong on this. I didn't actually look this up, but I could be wrong about this. But I'm pretty sure that Anakin is also DMSO.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that they both have that more aggressive
Yeah.
fighting style.
But
Um,
Form 4 Ataru, I don't actually know who if there's a canon example of someone who practices that.
okay. Um, yeah. See, the thing is about the forms is that I've done enough research and heard enough about them that I know them. Like it's like digging really deep to actually remember them.
Hmm.
So
So you are 10 and 3 now.
hey, there we go.
Yes.
Why am I 10-3? I'm supposed to be a Star Wars fan. It's like one of those quizzes where you take it and you find out that you're not as big a Star Wars fan. So now I got to go and like just dump a bucket of Star Wars on me. It
Well,
might not be a good idea because then nothing will stick.
well, I don't know if I actually changed this on yours, but not on mine. So let me actually go to what you're looking at to read off this next question. All right, so I changed one of the answers, and if I read off what I had there, it would have eliminated one of the answers for you. So I don't want to do that. So anyway, question 14: where were the Hoth scenes filmed for The Empire Strikes Back? Is it A, Greenland, B, Antarctica, C, Alaska, or D, Norway.
So, um, fun fact for that Hoss scene, the scene where Luke comes out, I think I might have mentioned this in our retrospective for The Empire Strikes Back, but when he comes out and he's comes out of the uh, can't remember what it's called, Wampa. Wait, no, what's the creature?
The
Why am I?
Wampa.
Why
You got it
can't I think
right.
of what it's
Wampa.
called?
You got it right.
Wampa. Okay. When he comes out of the Wampa cave and he stumbles through the snow and then he sees a vision of Obi-Wan, that was filmed like just yards in front of the hotel that they were staying in. When they first got to the location, they had like a bunch of blizzards, so like they took a while for them to film. But Mark Hamill had to suffer a little bit and go out there. That being said, that does not mean that I know specifically where this is. That just means I know that little tidbit. Um, so my answer, I'm going to go ahead and answer this. So anyone trying to play along, keep that in
Well,
mind. I'm thinking it's Norway. Now, that's right. That just means that that's what I'm thinking. Obviously, it's not Antarctica, and I don't believe it's Alaska. So I'm pretty sure it's Norway, but I'm not 100% sure. So tell me what the answer is, David.
that is correct. It is Norway.
Okay.
I was about to say
I'm over 50%.
I was about to say you knowing that story about the hotel automatically eliminates Antarctica because, well, for one thing, it would be very expensive for them to actually fly down a whole crew to Antarctica to film. But
And like, how would you go about filming? Like, just get
mm,
tents or something? Like, you're not going to be doing it all in one short shoot.
yeah. But also, so I mentioned I changed one of the answers. So on the original question I had, I put Russia, but then I realized I'm like, okay, that was the Soviet Union at the time. No way in heck were they letting a American film studio come in and film.
uh,
Like,
I know we're at war, but can we film this here real
exactly.
quick?
So like I'm just like, okay, I'm because I put Russia because like Siberia is like called like that's very
Mhm.
very similar to Norway. But then I'm like, no, wait, that's an obvious dead giveaway there. So because, like I said,
Yeah.
no way an American film, American film studio was gonna be able to film in Russia. Um, yeah, at the time, maybe even not now. I don't know, but that's a story for another time. Anyway, question 15: Who is the actor who has appeared in the most Star Wars films? Is it A. James Earl Jones, B. Hayden Christensen, C. Anthony Daniels, or D. Kenny Baker?
All right, so going through this list, James Earl Jones, the voice of Darth Vader, Hayden Christensen, Anakin Skywalker. You said Anthony Daniels was the stunt double for Prowse, right?
No.
What's okay? Well, then I guess if I got that wrong, then I know the name. I just don't. Anyways, and then wait, Baker. Okay, I know the name. I'm just trying to remember who plays C-3PO. That's R2D2, I believe. That's my answer because I know it's one of the two droids. I just can't remember which droid it is. Um, they've obviously been in. Well, they maybe haven't. So I don't know if they're still active. I think I'm pretty sure Kenny Baker has passed away. I think I know. I'm pretty sure the person who played R2D2 has passed away. I'm not entirely sure about that. But anyways, I don't know how long after they've kept playing the role after doing everything. But anyways, that's my answer. We can hash out the actual details once you tell me if
So
I'm
wait,
right or wrong.
who'd you say your answer was?
D Kenny Baker.
That is incorrect. It is C.
Okay.
Anthony Daniels, who plays C-3PO.
Plays okay, so
Kenny Baker did
Kenny
play.
Baker is
He
R2D2,
is
but he's
R2D2.
passed away.
He has
That's
passed
why.
away. Anthony
Okay.
Daniels has played C-3PO in all 9 of the mainline Star Wars films.
Okay.
So he has the most he's been in the most Star Wars films. See, I thought I might get you with like well Hayden's only been in 3. But James Earl Jones has been in like he was in obviously the original trilogy. He was in Revenge of the Sith. He was in Rogue One, or his voice.
No,
But
Comes down to me not remembering actors' names.
Yeah, but
this is my excuse. Okay, this is my excuse. It's getting late. I've had a long day, and my eyes are starting to get a little droopy. So I might just be getting tired. But you know what? I'm over 50%. That's all I wanted. That's all I wanted was 50%. So I can get
yeah,
the rest of these.
so you
I will get the next two wrong. I know
yeah,
that.
so you're 11-4. Now the next two, again, even a die-hard Star Wars fan shouldn't know this. This is like deep, deep cut. So that's just a disclaimer for the next two. Um, so number 16, approximately how many Star Destroyers did the Galactic Empire have at its height? Is it A, approximately 15,000, B, approximately 25,000, C, approximately 50,000, or D, approximately 100,000?
I'm gonna go ahead and spoil this. So, like we were saying, the next two are huge. Really, really, like you got to be so deep into this that you don't have a life, um, or just happen to stumble across it. One of the two. The next question is superstar destroyers.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm trying to think of what what's the difference. Which is not coming to mind. So I'm gonna do eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I'm gonna go on the medium side of things. I know that they had a lot, but I don't think it's like 100,000 or 50,000. So I'm gonna go with 25,000 as my estimate. So B is gonna be my answer because I don't
So,
know.
B,
That's
so
just my guess.
is that your final answer?
Yeah, that's gonna be my final answer.
You stumbled into success because that is correct.
Well, my thought process was with it was I know that they had a lot, so I was like, but 15 seems like too
Okay,
small,
okay,
and 50 and 1,000 just seemed like too many. So
okay.
yeah, stumbling to success is my model.
That's like
Motto.
when you look at this, like you kind of think like 25,000 is not really a lot, but yeah, it's a lot. That is a lot of Star Destroyers.
Mm.
And think about how many like stormtroopers were on each Star Destroyer. Like
The Empire
the
was massive.
yeah, the Empire was pretty big. But yeah,
Which
um,
I didn't mention this in the past part, but I do want to mention this here. So at the end of Return of the Jedi, the whole entire galaxy is celebrating the the defeat of the Empire, right? I don't think that just blowing up the Death Star or even killing the Emperor and Vader would have had that quick of a repercussion.
well, okay, and we see in like the Mandalorian and stuff that there's like a bunch of Imperial remnants. The Empire's not
Yeah.
gone. They're just
Like
just
it's a
fragmented.
happy ending. It's a happy ending, but like I don't think that would have
And then like
traveled that
and again we
fast.
also see like the New Republic is mostly it's just the Imperial government. They just under new management. you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
All the politicians stay the same.
yeah, so
All right, let's get on to the next one so that I can lose.
you're 12-4 now. So 17. How many super star destroyers did the Empire have at its height? Is it A 7, B 13, C 21, or D 57? Now, super star destroyers are the like bigger ones. Like you remember like Vader's flagship from Empire.
I got that much of it. I'm just trying to think of actual ship designs, but it doesn't really matter. Um, so because I guessed 25 on the last one, I'm gonna stick in the 20s just because, and I'm gonna say 21. I feel like that's pretty low, but uh, I don't care. That's my answer. 21. C.
Yeah, I think you already guessed that's incorrect.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was 13.
Oh, wouldn't have guessed it would have been lower.
Yeah, they only had the Empire only had 13 super star destroyers at its height.
Hmm. Anyways, all right. 12 and 5.
Mm-hmm. 12-5. All right. Question 18. Again, back to production. What was the first Star Wars film to use CGI? Was it A, A New Hope, B. Return of the Jedi, C. The Phantom Menace, or D. The Christmas Special?
We still need to find and watch that. That's on the schedule for this
Yes.
Christmas, but we got to find that and figure out how we can watch that. Um, so I'm gonna go ahead and answer this. Um, off of the knowledge that George Lucas went crazy, the CGI and the prequels. What letter is it? C. The Phantom Menace is going to be my answer. We were not going to have a prolonged this because we've already been recording for a while and we got more to talk about. So I'm gonna go ahead and answer this and see if we can get out of here. All right. So C. Phantom Menace is my answer. Tell me I'm wrong.
Okay, you're wrong.
Okay, that's fair.
I was
What
actually
classifies as CGI?
so that's the thing here. So I will add a disclaimer here. Yes, the Phantom Menace was the first one to have CGI to that extent and to have a lot of CGI. But technically, the first CGI, and I read somewhere that it was the first CGI in any movie. I didn't have time to fact check
Mm,
this, but I had read that somewhere. So I
makes
take that
sense.
with a grain of salt. But it was in A New Hope. The scene where they're having the briefing on the Death Star, and they have the like little
Um.
animation thing of where the Tie Fighter or not Tie Fighter, the X-wing like blowing up the Death Star. That
Mhm.
was CGI. So that was the first CGI
Yeah.
in a Star Wars movie, and presumably some of the first CGI in Hollywood ever. Like I said, I don't know. I don't know if it was the first
Well,
because I read that, but I did not have time to fact check that. So take that with a grain of salt. But
being that like the reason A New Hope had to do certain things was because CGI wasn't at that point
mm,
at available, if any. Um, I would say that it probably was the first one. That's yeah. I knew enough. Like I knew that scene was done differently. Um, I didn't necessarily know that would be considered CGI. I
mm,
thought it was like done with like not with computers, but I thought it was done with like on a computer screen. They did it up to be on a computer, but yeah.
mm.
Oh well.
But
12
yeah,
and 6 or 12 and 5? 12 and
12 and 6.
6 because 18.
Yeah, 12 and 6.
Oh well.
But yeah,
I don't know everything about Star Wars.
but yeah, I feel like that was a pretty good segment because I excuse me. Yeah, I well let's put it this way. I had like at least 3 to 4 hours of research into these questions, and over several days. So yeah,
Would have been way too impressive if I got them all wrong. So we have to fudge the numbers and make it look like I'm not as smart as I am.
well,
No, I'm kidding. I wouldn't have gotten those.
I was trying to get some easy ones, some harder ones, just because I know there's people who people listening want
Yeah.
something they can answer. Anyway,
Yeah.
let's move on to what's new with you, so we can talk about episode 6 of Ahsoka.
Mhm. All right, let's move it.
What's new? What's new with you? What's new? What's new with you? What's new? What's new with you? Yeah.
All right, so what is new with you, Wesley? And before we actually get into this, I want to mention that we're moving into what's new with you at at 2 hours and 9 minutes.
Oh
So
wow.
this is going to be our longest episode
Let's
yet.
let's go. Perfect.
Well,
We're a Star Wars podcast.
and actually, last episode was the first episode we introduced Trailcast Trivia, and that was our longest episode at the time. So I feel like Trailcast Trivia is going to extend our episodes by about 30 minutes. So this time it took an hour.
Yeah.
So yeah,
A lot more questions, and as you have more and as you have less, it's going to fluctuate how long that takes.
yeah,
But yeah, Trailcast Trivia is going to take some extra time. So,
yeah.
hey, for anyone who's listening to this and has made it this far into it, let us know how you feel about the longer segments, about having more, having less. Like, let us know. Do you
Mhm.
want to hear us talk for longer, or do you tune out after
And
we do the intro.
Well, one thing, so I did not do it this past week because the Trailcast trivia segment was so short, but and it was only 5 questions. But this week I am planning on clipping it, just the Trailcast trivia segment, and posting it to YouTube on Wednesday. So come back for that, and I'm planning on having like, because it's just gonna be the normal screen for the podcast on the actual podcast on YouTube. But I am planning on actually having more animations and stuff, like actually having the questions on screen for the clip. So if if you ever don't have time to listen to the whole podcast, but you want to listen to Trailcast trivia, go check that out.
And we thank you for your support. Mm-hmm. So, David, I don't have anything specific that's happened to me or care to take the brain power to think of anything specifically that's happened to me. So unless you have something specific, let's just go ahead and dive into Ahsoka.
Mm-hmm. So,
do you have anything specific? Has anything happened to you? How's your love life, David? Just the girl.
No, I don't think anything's happened specifically to me.
Okay.
Anyway, Ahsoka episode 6. So what did you think of Ahsoka episode 6?
So
well, one thing I will say, and I don't necessarily want to speak for you, but like one thing that I assume you probably liked was Ahsoka in this episode, because she was back to being quippy. She was more like Ahsoka from Clone Wars.
Yeah, I liked the way she was in this episode. I liked her interactions with I'm forgetting his name.
Huyang?
What's the droid's name? Huyang. I like the interaction she has with Huyang. I like the chemistry between Sabine and Ezra. Mm-hmm. All the names are just leaving me today. I like their chemistry. I like the little turtle people. Cool. I'm interested in what's going on with Baylan Skoll. Thrawn is a mastermind, and I'm interested to see more from him. But all in all, this episode was good. But when you take it in comparison and you look at the past 2 episodes, which I would say are like amazing, and this one's just good, it's kind of like, it's a little lackluster for it being the 7th or second to last episode,
So I don't think it necessarily went down, but I think it was just stagnant, which I think is what you're kind of feeling from this episode. Like nothing really major happened. So that's what I mean. It's kind of stagnant. But
I feel like the fact that it is stagnant, though, is a little bit of a down. Maybe, because then you have to wait another week. You have to wait another week for it to go back, like get to go more,
Yeah.
So also, it's like I understand that this is probably going to lead into Heir to the Empire in some way, shape, or form. Or if they hold off on that, it's going to lead into Ahsoka season 2. But like, there's a lot for them to figure out how to wrap up. At least in some way, wrap up in the next episode.
Mm-hmm. So
like, this episode didn't do anything, basically.
And again, it kind of like some of the questions we had from I had from last week, like of course mainly with Baylan Skoll, Shin Hati, and the Night Sisters, which we got to see a little bit of Night Sisters in this episode, but not really that much. But like, the whole thing with like Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati, like that just gives me more questions. Like, what exactly is Baylan doing on this new planet?
Yeah, because he's looking for something, but it's like, what is he looking for? And I heard the assessment of he's basically detached himself from Shin Hati, and like it's because she's a little too power hungry for whatever it is that he's trying to do. But then it's like okay, well, what is he trying to do that he's like she won't be a good ally, or she's not going to be someone that I want to have around in whatever this is that I'm planning. It's like there's a lot to it that's kind of mysterious, which also like I don't think unless they focus the whole next episode on it, I don't think that they can kill this character off and explain everything that they've
Yeah.
started with this. So it also makes you think, well, then what's the future of this? Like they're setting all this stuff up, and Ray Stevenson has passed away. So it's like, what are we going to do with this character moving forward? There's so many questions with it, and it seems like there's so little time, and it seems like it's a little bit impossible for them to answer all the questions with what they probably already have.
So last week with episode 5, no wait, 6.
You did both, but
Yeah, well, I don't think 6. Yeah, okay. Last week episode 6. I think you had made the comment of like, you'd heard people saying like, Shin Hati and Baylan Skull might end up at odds by the end of this. I didn't think that last time. I am starting to think that more after this episode. Because so they obviously set up maybe a possible like redemption for Shin Hati. She gets betrayed by Thrawn, and then she just runs off. She runs off into the wilderness pretty much. So we get like maybe a potential redemption for her. But I don't know if that's going to happen for Baylan too, or if maybe she's going to join back with Baylan. I don't know. Like I said, we just have more questions now.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, there's not. I personally don't feel like there's a lot to talk about with this episode. Like, there's obviously things that I liked about it, but like, I like seeing Hayden Christensen. Once again in some aspect of him as a Clone Wars. Like they had the brief hologram, like that. That was again nice to see. Ahsoka, she seems more like the character that I know or like. And Hugh Yang has always been a great character. He's been a great character since the start, and I like their chemistry or lack thereof since he's a robot, but they're dynamic. I liked the chemistry shown between Sabine and Ezra. I thought that was done very well too. The biggest thing that came out of this was Ezra in the fight.
And I did want to talk about that too, because I was kind of disappointed that we didn't get to see him use a lightsaber. Okay, now
I was disappointed at the fact that he turned down the lightsaber and then he showed a very lackluster performance in the Force. Because I expected when he did that, I expected him to go off. And he did not. I want to talk about, I'll let you say what you're going to say first before we get to this aspect, but I want to talk about the fact that Shin Hati was able to Force push him.
So, we'll get to that. Okay, I understand what they were going for. Like, okay, so, essentially, like, Ezra has surpassed the need for a lightsaber. But okay, they didn't really do a good job showing that because, like you said, it was kind of lackluster.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time,
when you think about it,
at the same time too, like even though I understand what they're going for, and I understand that is an aspect of like maybe good character development stuff, like arguably, a Jedi with a lightsaber is still way cooler than someone not using a lightsaber. So there's that aspect of it too. But
done well. Okay, think about this. The Emperor surpassed the need for a lightsaber. He despised them because he saw them as kind of a step down. Like he used them, but only kind of to mock the Jedi. That's kind of what I thought we were going to see here, where he was like, I've surpassed the need to use one because I'm more powerful without one than I would be with one. And it would make sense. It's been, 10 years, right?
Yeah.
He's had all this time to develop his connection to the Force. I expected him to go off. Also, like, he has a little bit of a bluish gray, like, mistish kind of look in his eye. So I thought maybe that was also symboling, like, maybe his connection to the Force had grown because and I haven't paid attention that closely or whatever. I've been having problems with our Wi-Fi, so I haven't been watching it on the TV. I've been watching it mostly on my phone, but I might not be seeing his eyes right. But something seems a little off with them, like they're not just regular eyes. So I thought that also kind of played into the fact that maybe he's a little bit more connected to the Force.
Mm-hmm.
And then he just there's a couple Force pushes. The closest we got was he blocked Shin Hati's lightsaber with the Force. I liked that aspect of it. And then that was like the one thing that they did. And the rest of it was just like bland.
Mm-hmm.
Like he survived the fight. But it's like you think that he'd be able to do more, especially if he turned down the lightsaber. Like I can understand him turning down the lightsaber. He hasn't touched one in all this time. But if he's using the Force, he should be more connected, should be able to do more things.
Well,
and they could introduce a bunch of good side Force powers in live TV that they have never done before. Live action.
And like you said, like I half expected him to like, yeah, I was half expecting it to be like you said, like, he's been in exile for so long, he's meditated so much, he's surpassed the need for a lightsaber because his Force abilities have grown so much.
Yeah,
but. And like
I would have loved to see that.
And like I kind of think that's what they were going for, but they didn't show it.
Mm-hmm. They've also kind of got like because of what they showed in this episode, they've missed their opportunity too.
Mm-hmm.
They can't do it now, and it makes sense. My main reason being is the Force push from Shin Hati.
Mm-hmm.
So, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, as it's very possible at time of the evening, and I could just be wrong in general. But so Jedi have this bit of a Force bubble over them, which kind of allows using a Force ability on a Force opponent who's at least equally status to you isn't quite gonna work out. Like you can do it, but like you got to kind of catch him off guard, which could be very possible in this scenario. But like if they're way more powerful than you in the Force, like you're not gonna be able to touch them with the Force.
So I know what you're talking about because we talked about this when we talked about Revenge of the Sith
with Obi-Wan.
Yes. So part of this is Legends, so I don't know how much it actually got going on this, but there is a precedent for it in Revenge of the Sith when like Obi-Wan and Anakin's duel. They try to Force push each other, but they can't.
Yeah.
So there is a precedent. There's precedent for like two like equally skilled Force users not being able to use the Force on each other.
That being said, though, I feel like and a lot of this might just come down to the fact that I see Shin Hati as a Padawan. Like, yeah, she's skilled, but she's not as skilled.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I just feel like that you can take the route of she caught him off guard. That's fine, and that's probably what happened. But, like, I feel like he should just be a little bit that much more powerful in the Force that wouldn't have happened, especially after 10 years in exile. Like I just felt like that was kind of a weak answer for why her and Sabine started fighting. Like their duels have become a running thing throughout this series, which is fine. That's fine. But like that was a pretty weak excuse to get him out of the way. Also I really wanted to see a full duel with Ezra against Shin Hati, where he has no lightsaber and all he's doing is using the Force.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, better than what they did. You know what I mean? Like, he should have showed more, I think.
Mm. Like, he should have had a lot more acrobatics. And, like, when he first, like, got down on the thing, like, saying, I don't need a lightsaber, like, I have expected him to just, like, be throwing stormtroopers all over the place with the Force.
Yeah. throwing them, maybe have like one that he's fighting and then one comes up behind him and it just freezes, like something like really like just do something like really really cool. Like, you could have
Well,
done
no,
so many
like,
cool things with this.
Okay. Here's exactly what I expected them to do. Do you remember in the original Clone Wars from 2004, the 2D animation Clone Wars from
Mm,
2004, the
thought about that.
the scene where Mace Windu is fighting all the super battle droids, and he's fighting them
Hmm.
with the Force and hand-to-hand combat. That's what I expected Ezra to do.
I thought about that after seeing that, and I was like, that should have been how they did it,
Mm-hmm.
and they completely. Here's the thing: we're gonna say in the present that, in my opinion, I feel like they whiffed on that. That doesn't mean that they may not do more things, and they have some kind of a plan with this.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we're not seeing it at this point in time, but I just don't. I that little bit was like, in all honesty, I see it as a minor thing. Like the
Mm-hmm.
fact that Ezra didn't go off, like that's a minor thing. It's just another one of those problems that I have with this. I love the show. Like, I've liked the show so far, but I have a lot of problems with it, and that just added that was the only thing that I had a problem
Mm-hmm.
with in this episode.
Now,
Besides the fact that it kind of just stayed still, like it didn't really do anything this episode. Like, it brought everyone together, but that was literally it. Like, it kind of
mm-hmm.
just that was about it for a about 40-50 minute episode. That's all it did.
Now I do find it very. I just find it very funny the line of when Sabine tells Ezra that she's been training with Ahsoka, and
Hmm.
Ezra's just like, really, why?
I mean, that's great.
Yeah, it's just like
um,
because like that's almost echoing what some of the fans have been like say like, yes
yeah.
she did start training with Kanan in Rebels, but again it's just like you know that's kind of echoing what some of the fans have thought.
Also, like, I had this mentioned. Why didn't they go into more detail about it?
Mm,
Like, all they said about any of that was, "Oh, it's complicated."
mm.
Give me an
See,
explanation.
I half
Like,
expect
you've
I
been
half
voiding
expected.
explanations this whole entire series.
Mm.
I need
And see,
explanations to
I
understand some
half
of these things.
expected that to be where they go back and explain that, but then they just moved on and like,
Hmm.
okay, but yeah, I half expected that to be where they were going to explain that. Now, another thing that I want to bring up here too, right, that happened in the scene. Well, I think it might have been a scene after this, but anyway, when Ahsoka reaches out to Sabine through the Force.
Hmm.
So, at first I was thinking like, okay, that I kind of have I don't know if I've made up my mind on this yet. Is that
Hmm.
is it strictly just Ahsoka reaching out through the Force to Sabine, or was it also part of like how do I want to explain this? Like, was it Sabine also using the Force to be able to hear Ahsoka?
Basically, what you're saying is this showing Sabine to have too much force power than she should?
Yes, essentially.
If I don't choke on my own spit, I'll answer the question. So I I've kind of gotten to the point with this show that I'm like, I have problems with it. Should I really focus on most of those? Just maybe let me get the whole series and then maybe I'll stop harping on it. Also, I've ranted so much on this podcast about it that it's like I might be a little tired of it myself ranting. Um, I just kind of chucked it up to Luke called out to Leia in the Force, and
Mm.
I just was like, kind of what this is like.
Well,
I don't
okay,
I don't
but
necessarily see it as her having too much force of power, but that doesn't mean that in another light I may have more problems
mm,
with it.
but at the same time, Leia was also the daughter of Anakin Skywalker. She was while not having not having formal Force training, was still fairly Force
Force
sensitive.
sensitive.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah, that's fair. I they're gonna do that. I feel like Sabine's gonna do something that's gonna not be what people want to see.
Mm.
I just feel like that's probably what's gonna happen. So maybe just prepare yourself.
Good,
Or maybe that would be the worst thing that happens.
good, young Wesley. Use your words. Use all of your hatred and strike down the show, and then your journey towards the dark side will be complete.
David, have you not listened to basically any of the other podcasts? Were you not here when I ranted about episode 1 and episode 2 and episode 3 and episode 4? How much I didn't like any of those? I am the emperor of hating this show right now, at least on this podcast. And that's being said, I still like it. I still have enjoyed it. There's just so many aspects about it that I just don't like, and so many aspects about it that I have questions that I feel like I shouldn't have questions about. Like there's certain things that should have questions about. So like I heard it said like this. So what is Thrawn putting on his ship? You don't know specifically what the cargo is. But that's kind of like you that's okay for us not to know. But like, why is Sabine being trained by Ahsoka? If they want to go the route of like you said, they are going the route of Ahsoka's guilt. Show us more of that aspect that Ahsoka feels guilty about leaving Anakin. Show us some flashbacks in episode 1 and in episode 2 of her having maybe force visions or nightmares of like stuff with the Clone Wars or of Anakin or something like that, you know? Like tell us more about this in the first couple episodes instead of just introducing characters and then like making them pretty much unlikable and then flipping it at the end, having an explanation for it. It's like, I see what you're going for, but why were they like that in the first place? It doesn't there's a missing piece here and you never explained it, you know? Like you have a resolution and it makes sense. There's a missing piece here that doesn't bridge the gap, you know? So those are problems that I have with the show so far. And as much as I loved sorry for bumping the mic. As much as I loved episode 5 and as much as I loved episode 6 and this episode was okay, it's like I still have those problems with it. But still I think I've enjoyed the fact that I'm watching Star Wars. That part's still cool.
Watching Star Wars, and despite what problems you or I might have with it, it still feels like Star Wars.
Yes, and that is definitely a huge aspect about it, is something feeling like Star Wars. Because we've gotten things before that don't feel like Star Wars.
Yep.
They just feel icky.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I know you're probably tired because this is a lot longer than we normally stay on here. Well, actually, no, we're getting done about the normal time, but we started a lot earlier, so.
Let's say we started not quite, but almost an hour earlier.
Yeah, and we've already
at least getting on,
and we've been recording for 2.5 hours. So.
Okay. Well, with that being said, though, I do want to make this final prediction. So I feel like in this next episode, because I feel like they're setting things up for Heir to the Empire, and we've also mentioned this, this is basically Rebels season 5? Because they had 4 or 3 seasons. What is it?
I think they had 4. Yeah, it's Rebels season 5.
Whatever. It's the next season of Rebels. I have my prediction for how this ends is they have to, or the rebel group rebels gets together. We finally see them all on screen, and they get together so that they can go beat Thrawn, who has now become an actual threat in the galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
And then that would lead into Heir of the Empire and stuff like that.
And I don't know if we're gonna see it in this, but I half expect to see, like, in Heir to the Empire, I half expect to see the Mandalorians return and help them take down Thrawn.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because isn't that kind of the point? Like, aren't they planning on bringing all their shows kind of together
Yeah, I think so.
and air to the like? I mean, that's what I've heard.
Like at least I expect to see like Din Djarin, Bo-Katan, and like other with all the Mandalorians come help them fight. Um,
Maybe bring in Tamara Morrison as Boba Fett and actually do a good job with him this time.
yeah, yeah. Well, they did a good job with him with his first couple episodes in the Mandalorian he was in, but after that and then in the Book of Boba Fett, they just trashed him. Anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah. Also, we did forget to talk about C-3PO in this episode, but that was really just a cameo.
Yes.
Still cool to see. I did half expect them to do a CGI Leia.
I thought that there was going to be a hologram, like a voice recording or whatever, or something like that, but they didn't end up doing that. It was
because they did that in.
Was cool to go ahead.
They did that in the Rise of Skywalker. Well, actually, I don't know if they did that. If that was CGI or if that was footage they already had, but like so I half expected them to do something like that for this episode.
Yeah. It was cool seeing C-3PO. Obviously, like you said, he's been in all of them. He's been around all of Star Wars, and seeing him, I watched Return of the Jedi, and then I watched Ahsoka, and was in the episode, and I was like, oh, I just watched him, at the Battle of Endor, And it's like, just think about how long C-3PO has been around, and like how much he's seen. Yeah, he's had his memory wiped. Like, just think about it from a standpoint of like, what if you didn't have your memory wiped? Like, think about how long he's been around. Like Hu Yang. Hu Yang's been around since like I think 2 or 3. I think he's apparently was put together and started serving the Jedi Order like 2 or 3 years after it was founded. He's been around for thousands of years. Yep. He is an old droid, and apparently he's like 75% original parts, which is really good.
Mm-hmm.
But like, just think about that, like because you're a droid. Like, sure, you might decay and be able, but you can replace your parts. You think about C-3PO. He's been around. He's seen it all. Whether he remembers it or not, he's seen it all. It's kind of a cool thing to see him kind of bridge the gap, and that kind of also makes it feel more like Star Wars when you see people that you know. Mm-hmm. I like seeing him in this episode.
Yeah, and it kind of does. Well, it's also kind of the same thing of like maybe not. It doesn't hit the same nostalgia, but like it's kind of the same thing of like seeing Luke in The Mandalorian. It's got that interconnectivity and all this.
Yeah, I feel like because like the fact that it's a little bit harder to do with the fact that Mark Hamill's not that age anymore, it's a little bit more like it seems like they're trying a little harder to make it all interconnected. Whereas like C-3PO, like they don't have to have what's his name? I don't remember his name.
Anthony Daniels.
Who's the actor? Don't have to have as much as like no one wants to see him go. Like if he did pass away, you could still have C-3PO technically because he's under a costume and suit. Like it's different with having the actual face of the actor.
And there's so much footage of C-3PO they could use one of those AI things to do the voice for C-3PO. Or there's probably also a bunch of people who can do a spot on impersonation of Anthony Daniels. So
well, like you said in the Clone Wars, where there's 2 people who play Anakin, there are some amazing voice actors out there.
Because like I said,
who don't get enough credit.
Because I did not even know they changed actors until I was doing the research for the trivia.
Yeah. So it's pretty crazy how some people can do that with their voice and sound so spot on with it all. But it was good to see him. Like it's kind of one of those things where like Grandma Mon Mothma was like, see 3PO, and like. That's the reaction that I had. I was like, "Oh, hey, look, it's C-3PO. Like, it's good to see him. Like it's like seeing an old friend. In a place that you didn't think you'd see them. And it was good to see. That's my praise for this episode. They had C-3PO in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway,
Oh, are we done?
I think we're done.
All right, let's go ahead and wrap this up and get on out of here.
Yep. So, how did it feel to wrap up our longest episode yet?
It feels like it probably is going to be short-lived at some point. Maybe not short-lived.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely going to be
2 hours and 40 minutes right now. So,
maybe not short-lived.
I don't know if we want to try to break 3 hours eventually, but I feel like that's going to happen eventually. But I don't want to try to do that today. So,
not today. No.
So,
I'm done talking.
Yeah, let's head on to an outro. Well, explorers, that's about all the time we have for today.
Hope you enjoyed this week's episode.
Let us know what you thought in the comments down below, or you can DM us on Instagram at DownTheRabbitTrailYT.
We appreciate you sticking all the way to the end. Tell your friends about us, and make sure to be here next week on the Trailcast.